Chapter 3284. By the way, what do you mean by immortal palace capturing unruly demons? Xiao Hua asked in confusion. Does immortal palace still care about hidden immortal continent? Hidden immortal continent has tens of thousands of countries and hundreds of millions of people. Fu Jiwen explained. These ordinary governance rights are all in the hands of the kings of the 10,000 countries. Immortal palace naturally won't intervene. Even if the country's power changes, immortal palace still won't care. Even if a power different from Confucian cultivators appears, immortal palace may not intervene. But if these powers openly compete with immortal palace, openly oppose Confucian cultivators, and openly slaughter Confucian cultivators, then immortal palace will definitely kill them. According to what I know, 800 years ago in the Yong province, there was a powerful bull demon who wanted to establish his own empire. Moreover, he treated the common people of the Yong province as his food. This angered the immortal palace, and they sent troops to kill that bull demon. Oh, isn't bull demon a demon of thousand demons' sacred realm? Can immortal palace just kill it? Xiao Hua asked in surprise. The real demons of thousand demons' sacred realm have never disdained to come to hidden immortal continent and Western paradise. The demons that can appear in hidden immortal continent are not the orthodox demons of thousand demons' sacred realm. Moreover, Thousand Demons' Sacred Realm's Great Sage Palace has also publicly announced that any demon that enters hidden immortal continent and Western paradise will be killed without mercy. Fu Jiwen said with a smile. So Immortal Palace also didn't show mercy to this bull demon. So that's how it is. Xiao Hua understood. When he was about to ask what the number 1 ranked imperial equipment was, Yulin Feng pressed his hand down. The hidden immortal continent's light ball that was just flickering with brilliance immediately dimmed, and the light ball next to it started to glow. Fellow immortals, all the rare items of hidden immortal continent's Confucian cultivators have been sold. Now, I will take out some rare items from Western Paradise. Please bid. As Yulin Feng's voice fell, dang, 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 the sound of the wooden fish rang out from the ball of light, and the complete Sanskrit chants rang out at the same time. Amitabha. The old monks who were sitting steadily had no choice but to put their palms together and stand up to shout. Namo Amitabha. A Buddhist chant resounded throughout the entire place. The ball of light suddenly expanded and turned into a barefooted Buddha that was several feet tall. He stood in the air, and the swastika character between his brows and the benevolence in his slightly opened eyes instantly attracted everyone's attention. Swoosh! The barefoot Buddha waved his hand, and it came crashing down like a mountain. Dang, 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 dang. A series of hurried sounds of the wooden fish rang out again, and then there was a deathly silence. Whether it was the wooden fish or the Sanskrit chanting, both had disappeared. As the Buddha's huge hand pressed down, the entire Buddha flickered with golden light, and in a breath's time, it turned into fireflies. The fireflies danced in the air for a moment, and then condensed into the outline of the Nirvana world. Just like before, there were more than 10 slightly larger balls of light. These balls of light were different from the ones in the hidden immortal continent. There were no other colors, only pure Buddhist light. Namo Amitabha. Several old monks chanted in unison. As I heard, for a time, Bagafan lived at the top of the Eagle Peak in the royal residence city, along with a group of 1,250 people. They were all arhats, and they were all exhausted, no more worries, truly free. Their hearts were good, and their wisdom was good, like a wise horse or a great dragon. What they had done, they had abandoned all burdens, they had grasped their own benefits, and they were all tied up. They knew that they were free, and their hearts were free. Apart from Ananda, they lived alone and learned to obtain the fruit of pre-flow. Maha Kasyapa was the highest. Several old monks were solemn as they chanted Buddhist scriptures. The entire auction house was silent for a moment, and then there was a lot of noise. Clearly, these Confucian cultivators were not very interested in Buddhism. Yulin Feng had an apologetic smile on his face. He raised his hand and saluted to his left and right. My hidden immortal continent is a land of etiquette. Since there are treasures of Buddhism here, we naturally have to respect them. We will wait for a moment. and it won't be too late to bid after these masters finish chanting. Yulin Feng, hurry up. It's already late. I still have to go back and meditate with my beautiful concubine. Who's here to listen to their nonsense for no reason? Who would have thought that just as Yulin Feng's voice fell, an irritable voice rang out. Not only was it blaming Yulin Feng, it was also ridiculing Buddhism's old monks. Yulin Feng saw that everyone was unhappy and bitterly smiled. Since it's like this, then I will start bidding. With that, Yulin Feng grabbed with his hand, and a Buddhist light flew out from the outline of the Pure Land and landed in front of Yulin Feng. When the Buddhist light faded away, it was a monk's staff. That monk's staff had 6 dragons coiled around it, and each dragon head was extremely ferocious. Where was the benevolent appearance of Buddhism? This is one of the 18 treasures of the Pure Land. It is said to be the personal item of the famous Buddhist monk, Miao Chun. These 6 dragons are the protectors of Buddhism. This monk's staff has the power of 6 dragons after using Buddhism's secret technique. And with this 6-dragon monk staff, one can also ride the wind. Yulin Feng gave a brief introduction, then continued. I'm afraid that only Buddhism's experts can clearly see the mysteries of this monk staff. I'm not fated with Buddhism, so I can't explain it clearly. The starting price of this monk staff is 10 upper-grade vitality stones, and each increment is 1 upper-grade vitality stone. I invite the fated person to make a bid. Just as Yulin Feng finished speaking, someone immediately raised their hand to bid, out of Xiao Hua's expectations. Strange. Xiao Hua laughed. Weren't there a lot of people making a racket just now? Why didn't they wait for these monks to finish reciting the scriptures before making a move? Could it be that they're trying to sell dog meat under false pretenses? Fu Jiwen looked around and hesitated. He whispered, I'm not sure about this situation. I remember that when I came down last time, there were very few people bidding for these Buddhist artifacts. Most of them weren't sold. Perhaps these people were planted by Zhai Xinglu? Xiao Hua frowned. They want the old monks of Buddhism to pay more vitality stones. Not necessarily. Fu Jiwen shook his head. These old monks of Buddhism don't care about ordinary Buddhist artifacts. They're eager to throw the Buddhist artifacts, scriptures, and Buddhas from nirvana to hidden immortal continent. What they care about are the relics of the eminent monks. Although those relics contain the psyche power of the eminent monks, most of it is the karma of the eminent monks. These karma are extremely difficult to control and can only be transcended using Buddhism. If it's obtained by someone with ill intentions, it may have an adverse effect on Buddhism. Moreover, relics are also the bodies of the eminent monks. Buddhism won't let them wander outside and want to bring them back to nirvana to be buried. And Xiao Hua nodded. If that's the case, these bidders should have the cultivation of Buddhism. I'm afraid that's the case. Seeing the auction gradually becoming lively, Fu Jiwen sighed. Buddhism's invasion of Confucian cultivators is very serious. Bronze Pillar Country strictly forbids Taoist and Buddhist temples, but it can't stop Confucian cultivators from practicing Buddhism's cultivation methods. Many Confucian cultivators who can't make any progress in Confucian cultivation may turn their eyes to Taoist and Buddhist sects, wanting to use them to advance their cultivation. And Buddhism's cultivation methods and Heart Sutras have always been given away casually. Confucian cultivators with cultivation experience can easily enter the sect. In the long run, hidden immortal continent's Confucian cultivators will no longer be Confucian. Young Master Fu, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Don't ask others to worry. Don't you also have the cultivation of Taoist? Fu Jiwen hesitated slightly and shook his head slightly. My situation is different from theirs and also different from fellow Xiao. All right, Xiao Hua didn't pursue the matter. After all, this matter already involved Fu Jiwen's secret. But at this moment, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something. All right, young Master Fu, didn't you say that there would be flying imperial devices from hidden immortal continent? Why aren't there any? The last time I came, I saw Bright Moon Palace bid for quite a few flying imperial devices. This time, I'm afraid there aren't any left? Fu Jiwen said hesitantly. Or perhaps When the last few imperial devices are up for auction, we'll bid again? Forget it, let's wait and see. Xiao Hua nodded and looked at the auction. After the six-dragon staff, there were some other Buddhist artifacts or prayer beads or alms bowls or incense burners. There was even a water bottle with a willow stuck on it. Seeing the aqua vase appear, Xiao Hua almost jumped up. However, when he saw the numerous sprouts on the willow tree that were trying their best to grow, he sat down. It was very obvious that the willow tree branch was a living thing. Perhaps it was broken off by some little bird at dusk and inserted into the aqua vase. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua asked again, "Young Master Fu, do you know what the Buddhist sect's bhikkhus' 18 objects are?" "Of course I know," Fu Jiwen said very casually. The 18 objects are the 18 objects that Buddhist sect's eminent monks often carry with them. These 18 objects are the Buddhist sect's eminent monks' protection. Unfortunately, one of them has committed a minor sin. Among them, there are 3 grades: heavy, medium, and light. That is, Li San Yi is shedding, which is a heavy sin. Li Bo is Tuji Luo, which is a medium sin. The rest are light sins. These ordinary Buddhist sect monks only use 6 kinds of things: Li San Yi, Li Bo, and water pouch. These 6 kinds of things are known as the bhikkhus' 6 objects. Although this humble one did not deliberately listen to these things, the monks who are everywhere often preach them. This humble one listened and understood. Immediately after, Fu Jiwen looked at the kasaya that he was bidding for. He pointed at it and said, "In fact, these 18 objects are what ordinary people need in life. They are yangji, which is a wooden chip used to remove the stench in the mouth; bathing bean, which is a powder ground from soybeans, beans, and peas, which is used for bathing and washing; Li San Yi, which refers to the 3 kinds of clothes of Sangha, Yudoro, and Anta; Li Bo, which refers to the army's 3 kinds of clothes; Li Bo, which is a water bottle used to hold water for washing or drinking; Li Bo, which is also known as a measuring vessel, which is used to hold food; Li Bo, which is a cloth on the ground or on the bed when sitting or lying down; Li Bo, which is a staff with a Li Bo on the head. When walking, the Li Bo vibrates to alert people of insects on the road or when begging to attract people's attention. Incense burner, which is an instrument used to burn incense and invite Buddhists. Li Bo, which is also known as a water filter, a cloth used to filter insects in water. Li Bo, which is a cloth used to wipe hands, including face wipes, body wipes, and feet wipes. Knife, which is used to cut clothes, shave hair, and cut cloths. Li Bo, which is a flintlock used to strike a fire. Li Bo, which is a tool used to pluck out nose hairs or thorns. Li Bo, which is a bed made of rope, which is convenient for sitting in meditation. Chapter 3285. So that's how it is. Xiao Hua stared blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. I thought the 18 objects were some profound things, but it turns out it's just like this. However, the Buddhist artifacts of the Buddhist sect need to be supported by the Buddhist Dharma. They need to be constantly nourished by their psyche power. So most of the Buddhist artifacts come from these 18 objects. Fu Jiwen pointed out the strangeness, because these 18 objects don't leave the monk's side every day. Forget it, thinking about the kasaya on top of his Buddha Sarara, the 9-dragon staff, and even the clear water bottle, all of which were things that the old monk never left his body for who knows how many years ago. Xiao Hua felt a bit sick of them. However, since they were all worn by the Buddha Sarara, Xiao Hua didn't think of throwing them away. The fun is here. The fun is here. Just when Xiao Hua was feeling disgusted by the Buddhist artifacts and was somewhat distracted, Fu Jiwen suddenly stood up from the chair and walked to the window with a smile. Oh, Xiao Hua was also curious. He looked outside and saw that there were dozens of jade boxes lined up in front of Yulin Feng. Each jade box was wide open, and inside were sariras as big as chicken eggs and as small as soybeans. These sariras were of different quality. Some emitted pure Buddhist light, while others emitted multicolored light. Not only Xiao Hua, who had already condensed a 4th-stage lotus platform, could tell at a glance, but even a Confucian scholar who didn't have the cultivation of a Buddhist sect could also tell. However, Yu Linfeng's voice sounded again. Fellow immortals, these are the sariras of the Buddhist monks that my Zhai Xing Lu painstakingly found near Yu province. As for the use of these sariras, there are Buddhist monks here, so I can't say it clearly. However, if there's anyone who doesn't know, you could go to my Zhai Xing Lu's place to look for it. All I have to say is that the Buddhist light is incomparably pure and can perfectly blend with the righteous energy of my Confucian cultivator. The base price of each of these Buddhist relics is 1 top-grade primeval stone. Damn it. Shall want to know whether to laugh or cry. This is the hidden immortal continent. 1 top-grade primeval stone. What kind of concept is that? Just now, the true work of the great Confucian scholar only used a top-grade primeval stone as the base price. How could these relics have a base price of 1 top-grade primeval stone? What was more special was that these relics were of different qualities. Zhai Xing Lu's starting price was 1 supreme-grade primordial stone. Wasn't that clearly bullying? However, someone had really stepped forward to be bullied by Zhai Xing Lu. As soon as Yu Linfeng finished speaking, a voice shouted, "I'll add 10 top-grade source stones for that untainted relic. This old man will add 50 upper-grade primordial stones. No, a relic of this quality can raise my nature energy by 2 grades. I'll give you 2 supreme-grade primordial stones." Fu Jiwen laughed. These people are really not afraid of trouble. Last time, when everyone made fun of these old monks, they still cared about their reputation and added upper-grade primordial stones one by one. This time, they actually added 2 top-grade primordial stones at once. Are they sure that these old monks are going to take action? Xiao Hua faintly smiled and asked, if the old monk were to go into silent meditation, this Xiao would like to see how they will deal with this. That won't happen. Fu Jiwen shook his head and said, Buddhism emphasizes that monks don't lie. Whatever they say should definitely be believed. According to this one's knowledge, every time Zhai Xing Lu holds this kind of auction, they will definitely be present. All the relics will never be left behind. All of them will be bought by them. Monks don't lie. Say that again after you've seen people like Hanju. Xiao Hua was rather disapproving of this sentence, but hearing the end, Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. Then how much primordial stones will they spend? Fu Jiwen snorted and said, Fellow Taoist Xiao, why don't you see who is behind them? Who? Xiao Hua seemed to have understood something, but he still asked. Behind them are the kind men and women of Burial Immortal Continent and Western Paradise Continent. The daily offerings of these trillions of kind men and women are unimaginable to ordinary people. These monks are relying on these offerings to straighten their backs and dare to challenge here. This is why they dare to say that every relic must be bought. Fu Jiwen sneered. It is also because of this, the relics here. These monks must buy them. Otherwise, they won't be able to answer to these kind men and women. Xiao Hua listened and looked at the several monks whose expressions were calm, as if they were not affected by the increasing bidding price of the relics. He sighed and said, respectfully welcoming the relics of the eminent monks back to Western Paradise Continent and letting the departed souls of these eminent monks rest in peace. This is originally a very good thing. If both sides were kind, it would be a good thing. But now one side is trying their best to raise the price, secretly rejoicing in their own gains, while the other side is fearless and unhesitatingly taking out the offerings of others. This is already not a good thing to respectfully welcome, but an evil thing to flaunt. I'm afraid this is one of the methods Buddhism uses to attract believers in Burial Immortal Continent, right? Fu Jiwen thought carefully and of course also felt sad. He nodded and said, Fellow Taoist Xiao is right. Even if this one is just a bystander, watching the show, it seems like I'm also helping the tyrant. That's natural. Xiao Hua nodded and looked at the entire Bright Moon Palace. And this Zhai Xing Lu is the chief evil and also the instigator. The secular people are right. Money is the source of all evil. Zhai Xing Lu accumulates wealth like this. At this point, Fu Jiwen did not dare to talk nonsense anymore. Seeing that the monk from the Buddhist sect did not respond, The several Confucian scholars who had been aggressively bidding immediately lost their confidence. They began to raise the price one by one. However, the number of people who raised the price also decreased. Quite a number of people chose to withdraw. After all, not everyone was willing to try this kind of stimulation that was similar to beating drums and passing flowers. Suddenly, one of the few old monks who looked relatively young took a step forward. He put his palms together and bowed to the surroundings. These relics are something that my Buddhist sect must obtain. I'm sure everyone already knows that. As for the meaning of the relics, this old monk also does not want to say much. These are the wandering souls of my Buddhism sect. This old monk is under the orders of the Buddha, Lord, to welcome them back to Western Paradise Continent. These relics can increase a Confucian cultivator's noble spirit, but correspondingly, the negative karma in the relics will also be added to the cultivator's body. Everyone here does not understand the secret arts of my Buddhism sect and does not know how to eliminate negative karma and get rid of negative karma. In the future, you will definitely be tired of this negative karma. Therefore, this old monk advises everyone here that greed is easy to breed and negative karma is difficult to eliminate. Practicing honestly is the right path. As he spoke, the monk pointed at the dozens of relics floating in the air. These are the wandering souls of my Buddhist sect's Arhat. My Buddha Lord is willing to redeem each wandering soul with 3 supreme-grade primordial stones. If anyone here is willing to pay a higher price than my Buddhism sect, then please go ahead. My Arhuts, wandering souls, cannot rest in peace in Western Paradise Continent. My Buddhist sect's hundreds of millions of benefactors who sincerely worship Buddha will also not be at ease. This monk, upstairs, Fu Jiwen, was stunned. He actually dares to threaten? Looks like the Buddhism sect also has no surplus food. Xiao Hua sighed and looked at Yulin Feng. He knew this monk's threat was nothing. The only one who would suffer losses was Zhai Xing. Lu Yu Linfeng's brows frowned a little. Then he laughed and said loudly, "The Buddhist sect's master has already made a big bid. I wonder which immortal friend wants to increase the price? How can there be anyone who wants to charge forward?" Fu Jiwen lost interest and walked back to the chair from the window. He sat down and said, "This is hundreds of supreme-grade primordial stones. Who can afford it?" Just now, this monk already said those harsh words. If some idiot increases the price by 1 supreme-grade primordial stone and these monks really give up, wouldn't this idiot cry himself to death? What if I take this idiot? Xiao Hua looked at the dozens of relics, his heart beating wildly, and he almost blurted out. "TCH, Fu Jiwen was disdainful. Fellow Taoist Xiao is neither a Confucian cultivator nor a member of the Buddhism sect. Why would you take this idiot? If you want to be, it should be someone from Zhaixing Lu." Hiss! Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly suppressed the greed in his heart. Nonsense, it was a blessing to have 3 cultivators, but from another point of view, it was a great tragedy. In this conflict between Confucians and Buddhists, he might be caught in the middle. He might as well be a Taoist loose cultivator. Why would he expose his Buddhism sect cultivation for no reason? "That's true," Xiao Hua nodded and looked at the scene. He smiled and said, "I bet that Zhaixing Lu will definitely test it out." Fu Jiwen shook his head slightly. "I don't think so, because there's really no need. Let's wait and see." Xiao Hua smiled, but didn't say anything. Sure enough, after Yu Linfeng's words fell, no one spoke. After half a cup of tea's time, Yulin Feng said helplessly, "If no one bids, this old man will add 3 supreme-grade primordial stones for each relic." A slightly shaky voice came from downstairs. Damn it! Fu Jiwen almost jumped out of his chair. This is too fake. The people downstairs, can they have hundreds of supreme-grade primordial stones? According to the rules, they have no right to bid at all. Haha, there's no need to be so angry. Xiao Hua smiled. This is just like how young Master Duamu tested me. Zhaixing Lu must give the Buddhism sect face, and the Buddhism sect must give Zhaixing Lu an answer. This auction is just a question and answer, nothing more. And this Xiao is sure that the bidder will definitely get something from this supreme grade primordial stone. Sure enough, Just as Xiaohua thought, the monk said lightly, "This old monk will add 1 supreme-grade primordial stone for each relic." That person didn't make a sound. Yu Linfeng laughed and waved his hand. The dozens of jade boxes closed at the same time and flew to the monk. The monk bowed and said, "Amit Ba, many thanks to Zhai Xing Lu for your help." Chapter 3286. With a wave of the monk's yellow robes, the dozens of jade boxes disappeared at the same time. Then, with another wave of his hand, a small cosmos bag flew out of his sleeve and slowly landed in front of Yu Linfeng. "This is the ransom for the dozens of Buddhas. Yu Linfeng, please check it." "Monks don't lie. I know that." Yu Linfeng naturally wouldn't check it and accepted it with a smile. Then, when he saw the old monks turn around and leave without a word, he hurriedly shouted, "I'll see you off, masters." Amiba. The monks left, but a Buddhist chant that was as clear as spring water was left in the auction. Haha, an eminent monk is indeed an eminent monk. Although this Buddhist chant didn't contain a trace of psychokinesis, it was enough to hear one's heart. Yu Linfeng hurriedly laughed and said, "They turned around and left without leaving a speck of dust behind. Since the masters have left, Zhai Xing Lu's auction is about to end. The treasures from the Pure Land have already fallen to the ground. Zhai Xing Lu still has some items from the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. However, the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm is too dangerous for the human race. These items are not even comparable to the ones from the Pure Land. Of course, these few items are definitely the best of the best. That's why Zhai Xing Lu has always placed the items from the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm at the end of the auction. Come on." Yu Linfeng finished speaking and waved his hand. Caw! A bird's cry that shook the entire place was suddenly heard. An extremely small light spot flew over from afar. In the blink of an eye, the light spot transformed into a bird that was several feet large. This bird looked like an eagle, but it wore a golden crown on its head. Under the golden crown, the majestic eagle's eyes shone with a light that couldn't be looked at directly. Boom! The bird spread its wings as it landed, and thousands of streams of light flew out from its huge wings. When the bird stretched its neck and let out a long cry, the thousands of streams of light rushed into the outline of the Thousand Demon Sacred Realm and turned into a few spots of light. Fellow Taoist Xiao. On the balcony, Fu Jiwen smiled bitterly. "I lost the bet earlier. I admit defeat. Haha, actually, you didn't lose." Xiaohua looked at the bird's shadow with interest and said with a smile, "It's just that you never had the chance to come into contact with these scheming people, so you don't know what they're thinking. A loss is a loss." Fu Jiwen waved his hand. "Fine, since you've lost, then tell me, what is the name of this bird? Why can it replace the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm?" Xiaohua pointed. Contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, Fu Jiwen actually shook his head and said, "I know very little about the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, and I don't know what this flying beast is. If I'm not wrong, then this beast should be a great sage of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. Only a great sage can represent the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm." "All right, then what is a great sage?" "Saints are supreme beings." Fu Jiwen explains, "Our hidden immortal continent's saints are supreme beings in the human realm. The great sage of the Thousand Demon Sacred Realm is the title of the most powerful demon." Xiaohua was naturally not satisfied with this kind of answer. He waved his hand and said, "If you don't know, then you don't know. It seems like you really don't know." "It's not just me who doesn't know," Fu Jiwen said with a smile. "The Thousand Demons Sacred Realm is a place where thousands of demons gather. If we humans go there, we'll be their food. In my hidden immortal continent, other than the great grandmaster and above seniors who have the qualifications to explore the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, no one else has ever been there. If fellow Xiao asks 100 people, it's already not bad if one person can answer clearly." "All right, let's not talk about this anymore." Xiaohua smiled faintly. "You'd better reveal the mystery of the top 10 Imperial equipment. I'm looking forward to it. I wonder what the number 1 Imperial equipment will be." "What can it be?" Fu Jiwen smiled mysteriously and said, Fellow Xiao has never practiced martial arts before, so I'm afraid you don't know what it means to practice the blade for 100 days, practice the spear for 1,000 days, practice the sword for 10,000 days, right? Xiao Hua was startled and asked curiously, could it be that young Master Fu has practiced martial arts before? Of course, Fu Jiwen said proudly. Hidden Immortal Continent's Confucian scholars all have to practice the 6 arts. Martial arts, sword arts, and so on are all things that must be learned. I understand. Xiao Hua nodded. The top of the top 10 imperial equipment is the sword, right? Fu Jiwen said with a smile. The sword is an ancient sacred item, the most revered and noble, worshipped by humans and gods. It's the ancestor of short weapons, a weapon for close combat. With its profound Dao skills, it became a legend. In fact, because it's light and convenient to carry, it's beautiful to wear, and it's quick to use, the hidden immortal continent's various dynasties, princes, emperors, marquises, scholars, swordsmen, merchants, and commoners, all of them take pride in it. Since ancient times, the sword and its skills have been unhindered in the battlefield, dominating the martial arts world, establishing a country, and upholding justice. Thus, it has been passed down to this day, and is still loved by the people of the world. With its glorious history, it's deeply rooted in people's hearts, and can be passed down without decline. The top of the top 10 imperial equipment is precisely the tender-like water sword. Tender-like water, sword. Xiao Hua seemed to have understood something. Since ancient times, the most difficult thing to erase is the grace of a beauty. The sorrow of a beauty's feelings is like flowing water. If it can't be cut off, it will be chaotic. This tender-like water sword is truly outstanding. That's right. This tender-like water sword is like its name, a soft sword. The entire sword is transparent like water. When placed in water, it's the same as water. The sword's body is warm. After this sword is cut off, it can automatically fuse back together. Just like feelings. It can't be truly cut off. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Xiao Hua said thoughtfully. If it's only like this, how can it be the #1 imperial equipment? The sharpest thing in this world is tenderness, and the most hurtful thing in this aristocratic family is also tenderness. This tender-like water sword can open the heavens with water droplets. When Fu Jiwen talked about tenderness, his eyes unexpectedly also showed tenderness. As long as there are still feelings in their hearts, they can't escape the attack of this tender-like water sword. It said that in the past, the hidden immortal continent's pear blossom fairy was injured and abandoned by the nobles of the immortal palace. In a rage, she held the tender-like water sword and killed her way to the immortal palace. In front of the southern heavenly gate, her sword soared through the sky and annihilated tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers. When Empress Dowager led the immortal palace's Star River to kill the fairy's sword cut the Star River into 2. Unfortunately, this tender-like water sword was broken by the starlight in the Star River and turned into a morning star that disappeared into the horizon. The pear blossom fairy even charged into the Star River with hatred, and her body and soul were destroyed. From then on, no matter what imperial equipment was born, it would be difficult for it to surpass. This tender-like water sword has always been listed as the #1 imperial equipment. Sai Xiao Hua sighed. This is another sad but beautiful story. I wonder if this story is the #1 imperial equipment story? Or is it tender-like water sword that is the #1 imperial equipment? What's the difference? Fu Jiwen laughed. The things you can't get are always the best. The faintly discernible legends are always the most beautiful. The memories in a person's heart are always the most profound. Strange, hearing this, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of his own wishful staff and immediately interrupted. The ancestor of short weapons, the staff is also the #1 weapon. Why isn't there a staff in the top 10 imperial equipment? Staff? Fu Jiwen scratched his head and laughed. Fellow Taoist Xiao must be joking. A staff? Isn't it just a staff? How can it be in the top 10 imperial equipment? Forget it. I won't play the lute to a cow with you. Xiao Hua casually waved his hand, But before he could continue, his expression changed, and he hurriedly looked at the auction hall. In front of Yulinfeng, there was a jade slip. That's right, it was a jade slip commonly seen in the Dawn Rain continent. At this moment, it was floating in front of Yulinfeng. Yulinfeng said, "Fellow Taoists, this item is the jade I used by the ancient Taoists before they were destroyed by us Confucian cultivators. It should have been placed in the Taoist trifling item auction, but because this item was obtained from the Thousand Demon Sacred Realm, it wasn't taken out until now. This item's inspection method is different from the jade eye. After Zhaixing Lu obtained it, we searched through the ancient records and found out that this item was called a jade slip. After that, Zhaixing Lu specially found a Taoist expert and used their unique divine sense to inspect it. Only then did we find out that it was a 5-elements escape technique. Oh, to be more specific, it should be a commonly seen high-level escape technique in the hidden immortal continent called the water avoidance technique. This item is really rare. At least, I've never heard of it before. According to the person who inspected it, after practicing this escape technique, one can borrow the water of heaven and earth's spiritual energy to fly. It's even more powerful than us using the water avoidance technique to travel in the Jianghu. When the Taoist sect was flourishing, it must have been extremely precious. However, now that the Taoist sect has declined, according to that person, there isn't even a person who can use the elementary water escape technique. How could there be someone who needs this higher-level escape technique? Even when Zhaixing Lu saw that this item was of little value and wanted to sell it to that person bitterly smiled and refused. Thus, Zhaixing Lu could only bring it here to bid. It's a bit strange. Although Xiao Hua was excited, he had already calmed down. He pinched his chin and said curiously, "Why did this guy say such a secret so clearly? Isn't he afraid that no one will bid?" "Huh." Fu Jiwen at the side laughed and said, "This is the 3rd time I've heard this. This whatever jade slip is the same as the amplifying thunderwood that I want. No one will bid for it. If not for it being more rare than the amplifying thunderwood and having a higher base price, this guy would have already taken out when the bidding started." "What's the base price of this item?" Xiao Hua hurriedly asked. "1 piece of top-grade primeval stone." Fu Jiwen was really familiar with it and said without hesitation. Xiao Hua cursed loudly. "Damn it, this is indeed a rare item worth hoarding. This kind of broken jade slip is actually sold for 1 piece of top-grade primeval stone?" "Yes, this item is just like the golden core cultivation method. In some people's eyes, this item is trash. But in the eyes of others, this item is a peerless treasure." Zhaixing Lu fancied this point and would rather smash it in their hands and lower the price. The base price of this jade slip is 50 top-grade primeval stones. Without waiting for Fu Jiwen to finish speaking, Yulinfeng cut the base price of the jade slip in half. "Damn it," Fu Jiwen immediately jumped up. "This young master has waited for this auction 3 times, and that amplifying thunder didn't even lower the price of a single primeval stone. How can this jade slip be lowered just like that? This is too unfair." Chapter 3287. It's not unfair. It's your bad character." Xiao Hua smiled and raised his hand. "I bid 51 high-grade source stones." "Io, fellow Xiao." Fu Jiwen hurriedly shouted. "You bid too early. Others can see that you're determined to get it." "That's right. Since I'm determined to get it, then I naturally have to let others know." Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the opposite side, where Duanmu, young master, was. 52 high-grade source stones. Sure enough, Duanmu young master's voice leisurely came. Xiao Hua confidently said 53. Fu Jiwen naturally understood Xiao Hua's meaning. This Duanmu young master was probably the biggest obstacle to Xiao Hua bidding for this jade slip, or even the only obstacle. No matter when Xiao Hua opened his mouth, Duanmu young master would definitely return the favor from last time. Since that was the case, why didn't Xiao Hua open his mouth earlier? "AI, what a pity." Fu Jiwen stomped his feet. "Fellow Xiao, I'm afraid there are even better things later. You let him return it too early. Not early, not early. Xiaohua also leisurely said, I've benefited a lot from this auction. This item will be the last item to bid. I won't be able to use any of the items in the future. Besides, even if there are more in the future, I'll just continue to bid. Who would be afraid of them? Sure enough, just as Xiaohua thought, Duanmu young master only bid once and didn't say anything else. It seemed to be to return Xiaohua's favor. And somewhere in Bright Moon Palace, Zhu Qing, who had been watching the entire auction with a sullen face, sighed again. Such a good favor. Why let it go so easily? Could be that Xiaohua really needs this jade slip, and his strength is so strong that he's not afraid of the Duanmu family? Okay, this senior bids 53 high-grade source stones. Yulin Feng saw that the useless jade slip was finally sold as he wished, and couldn't help but be overjoyed. He clapped his hands and said, If no one bids, this item will be this senior's. 55 high-grade source stones. Just as Xiaohua was about to call out Xiao Yi with a smile, another voice came from downstairs. Xiaohua's face turned cold. Looking up, it was the person who bid for the golden core cultivation method. Are you crazy? Without waiting for Xiaohua to open his mouth, Fu Jiwen scolded in sympathy. Fellow Taoist, Xiao has already helped him bid for a gold core cultivation method. How can he repay kindness with enmity? Or perhaps his identity as a cultivator of the Tao sect has already been exposed, so he can't add insult to injury. Young Master Fu, you're using the wrong words to make things worse. You should be trying to create new problems. Xiaohua said coldly. Hee, that's right, that's right. Fu Jiwen chuckled. After chatting with Xiaohua for so long, Fu Jiwen felt like they were old friends at first sight. Unconsciously, he had already regarded Xiaohua as an old friend. He won't be bidding again soon, Xiaohua said indifferently. He raised his hand and said, 56 high-grade primordial stones. Immediately after, he muttered, Could it be that this guy is blaming me for not helping him bid for the golden core cultivation method? Or do you think that I'm making fun of you? No matter what, you made me spend 2 high-grade primordial stones for nothing. Good. This fellow Taoist has increased the price. Fellow Taoist downstairs, are you going to increase the price? Yulin Feng appeared excited again, as if every increase in price could excite him. Just as Yulin Feng was anticipating the increase in price, below the balcony, the cultivator who had just bid screamed for no reason, and then resisted the urge to say anything else. Fellow Taoist Xiao. Fu Jiwen's eyes darted around, looking at Xiaohua as he said in a low voice. Using virtue to convince people. Using virtue to convince people. Xiaohua laughed mischievously. I've always advocated using virtue to convince people. Fellow Taoist, are you going to increase the price? Yulin Feng was rather surprised, but he didn't have any other thoughts. After all, the Bright Moon Palace was surrounded by many experts from Star Plucking Tower, and they weren't afraid of others causing trouble. Since no one shouted to stop, it couldn't have been done by that mysterious senior upstairs. The Taoist cultivator who instigated the internal strife naturally wouldn't bid, and even the meddlesome people in the surroundings didn't dare to make a sound. Young Master Duanmu was even more bewildered as he looked at the similarly illusory window in front of him, thinking about something unknown. Good. Yulin Feng's anticipated climax didn't come, and he could only somewhat dejectedly point his finger, and the jade slip slowly flew towards Xiaohua's window. Seeing the jade slip fly towards him, Xiaohua had the urge to use heaven and earth in the sleeve, as if only by holding this item in his hand would his heart be at ease. Of course, Xiaohua's current magic power wasn't enough to support heaven and earth in the sleeve, and the current Xiaohua didn't seem to be as impetuous as he was back in the Dawnrain continent. He only indifferently looked, and his eyes didn't move from the jade slip at all, as if he already had a card up his sleeve and wasn't afraid of anyone coming to snatch it from him. It was as if he was completely certain that even if this jade slip was snatched away by someone, he would still be able to take it back. Unknowingly, Xiaohua, who seemed to be a young lad, had already begun to transform, whether it was his temperament or bearing. Perhaps it was because of time, or perhaps it was because of a great change. In short, at this moment, Xiaohua, who hadn't recovered much magic power, and whose divine abilities weren't even 30% of his peak, actually had a confidence he never had before. Xiaohua took the jade slip and said, "Should this old man hand over the origin stones to you now?" Xiao Yi answered and entered, then hastily waved her hand and said, reporting to Senior, "As long as there's a bid below a supreme grade origin stone, Senior doesn't need to immediately hand over the origin stones. This is a kind of treatment for distinguished guests." "No need." Xiaohua stretched out his hand, took out a supreme grade origin stone, and handed it to Xiao Yi, saying, "This kind of treatment doesn't have any practical meaning. Senior, you'll soon know the treatment for distinguished guests." Xiao Yi took the origin stone, pursed her lips, and smiled, then lowered her head and left. "What kind of treatment do distinguished guests have?" Xiaohua used his divine sense to enter the jade slip, carefully probing it, and asked Fujiwen again. Fujiwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He spread out his hands and said, "Fellow Taoist, I'm just joking. This is the first time I've entered a distinguished guest's room. How could I know the treatment for distinguished guests?" However, after thinking for a moment, he probed again. If it's the most obvious treatment, it might be when bidding for the last few treasures. After a certain price, the cultivators downstairs aren't allowed to bid. They're probably afraid that they can't afford the origin stones, so they're blindly shouting there. Xiaohua answered indifferently. Fujiwen couldn't clearly see Xiaohua's appearance in the stardust, but he also understood that Xiaohua was probing the water escape technique. After the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Xiaohua put the jade slip into the space and handed it over to the green-robed Xiaohua to comprehend. At this moment, Xiaohua was really happy. Although this water escape technique wasn't a high-grade water escape technique like Yulin Feng said, it was still a mid-grade water escape technique. After fusing with the water, it was an escape technique that relied on the water energy of heaven and earth to fly. In other words, as long as it was a place with water energy of heaven and earth, one could use this escape technique to fly. It wasn't like before where there was real water to be able to escape. As for the water avoidance technique from the West Sea, Xiaohua had already finished comprehending it with the Buddha Saraira. That technique was very strange and required the so-called origin energy to be used. However, Xiaohua didn't know what origin energy was, so he couldn't test it out. Xiaohua closed his eyes for a moment and pondered a little. He knew that although these two water escape techniques weren't of the same origin, the realms of the escape techniques were connected. If he finished cultivating the water avoidance technique, he could naturally continue to cultivate the mid-grade water escape technique. Oh, right. Isn't there someone in front of us who knows about origin energy? It's a waste not to ask. Xiaohua glanced at Fu Jiwen, who was also silently looking at the auction, and came to a realization. He hurriedly smiled and said, "Young Master Fu, I still have a question to ask. Fellow Taoist Xiao, why are you so polite? Please ask." Fu Jiwen hurriedly moved his gaze away from the window and said with a smile. Xiaohua said, "I would like to ask, what is origin energy? Is it the magic power of Confucian cultivators?" "Yes," Fu Jiwen said curiously. "Taoism is magic power. Buddhism is psychokinesis. Confucian cultivators are naturally origin energy. But why do some demons' cultivation techniques also mention origin energy?" Xiaohua asked curiously. "This is what I don't understand." "Oh, I understand," Fu Jiwen said with a smile. "Does fellow Taoist know about the 9 grades of origin energy and the 27th rank?" "I naturally know about this." Xiaohua nodded. "Then it's easy to explain," Fu Jiwen explained, "because the 3 continents have magic power, psychokinesis, and origin energy." "Oh, I'm not very clear about the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm. This kind of classification is too heterogeneous. However, some cultivation techniques can be used regardless of magic power, psychokinesis, or origin energy. Therefore, Confucian cultivators use origin energy to refer to all magic power, psychokinesis, and origin energy. So it's like that. Xiao Huan nodded and said, "These Confucian cultivators are really tyrannical. Origin energy is 9 grades. The substitution of origin energy is convenient for them. It can't be helped." Who asked the hidden immortal continent to have the most Confucian cultivators? Fu Jiwen smiled, then pointed outside the window and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, didn't you just say that you want to look for flying equipment? Now, they have already started a bid for flying demonic beasts. Why don't you take a look?" "Okay." Xiao Hua responded and looked outside the window. However, he was ecstatic in his heart. Since magic power can be used as origin energy, then when his magic power is fully recovered, he can naturally use the water escape technique. In other words, he can already use the complete 5 elements escape technique. His light escape technique cultivation has indeed taken a solid step. At this moment, in front of you, Lin Feng, there's a row of over 10 eggs of different sizes, which are also emitting different kinds of bewitching brilliance. The shape of these eggs is as strange as the halo. Some are oval, some are flat, some are gourd-shaped, and there are even some that are long. There are even some eggs that are faintly flickering as if these eggs are lightly breathing. "These are demonic beast eggs?" Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and asked Fu Jiwen in a low voice. Chapter 3288. Without waiting for Fu Jiwen to answer, Yulin Feng unfolded his fan and pretended to wave it a few times. He smiled and said, "What fellow immortals are looking at is naturally the eggs of the extremely precious birds and beasts of the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm. Everyone knows that the Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent can't be compared to the demons of the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm. They can't rely on their physical bodies to fly long distances. They can only rely on flying tools and birds. Generally, flying tools requires primeval stones and primeval energy. Sometimes it also consumes divine sense. Birds for transportation don't need to be so troublesome. As long as you communicate with them, you don't need to think too much. You can sleep and be taken away by the birds. What's more, a well-trained bird is a great help to us. They can also help you kill any evil cultivators you encounter. And these birds and flying beasts are best raised from young. Sign a blood contract with them before they hatch. If you erase the blood contract with the birds and flying beasts, then sign a new one, the bird's spirituality will disappear a lot. The eggs of the birds and flying beasts in front of me are all from the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm. They weren't raised in captivity by the hidden immortal continent. Therefore, you don't need to worry about the spirituality of these birds and flying beasts after they hatch. Of course, if any fellow immortal is unlucky and can't hatch the eggs, or if the hatched demonic beast doesn't have spirituality, my Zhai Xing Lu won't take responsibility." "Ha ha!" Yulin Feng teased a few words. He flung his fan and said, "The first egg is a cloud crane egg. The starting price is 5 high-grade primeval stones. 6, 10. Following Yulin Feng's words, the entire auction hall became lively again. After all, these flying beasts were commonly used. Many people came here for these eggs. How could they be patient? They hurriedly bid. That fellow Taoist Xiao. Fu Jiwen stole a glance at Xiao Hua. Seeing that he didn't do anything, he said with a smile, "I want a bid for a wood-attributed green crane. I hope fellow Taoist Xiao can help me." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "No problem, you can bid as much as you want. It's not what fellow Taoist Xiao thinks." Fu Jiwen said with some shame, "Dao friend helped me bid for the thunder amplification wood, so I should have given all these high-grade primeval stones to Dao friend. However, I've been thinking that these upper-grade primordial stones are not enough to compensate fellow Taoist. I don't know how I can compensate or repay fellow Taoist. But now, I'm not paying attention to fellow Taoist's gift, and I'm bidding for the birds instead." "All right." Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand. "There's no need to mention this again. Just now, young Master Fu gave me a lot of pointers, and that's more than enough to repay him." "Young Master Fu?" You can bid as much as you want. There's no need to think too much about it. All right, Fu Jiwen sighed. Actually, the reason why I bid for the green crane is because I want to wait for my wife to escape and take her to travel the world. Escape? Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows, thinking that he had misheard, but Fu Jiwen seemed to have blurted it out. His face was a little embarrassed, and he immediately looked out the window, not saying another word. Since Fu Jiwen didn't say anything, Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't ask anymore. Soon, the price of the cloud crane egg reached 23 high-grade primordial stones, and it was bought by a cultivator downstairs. Following that, the fire snake, blue luan, cloud howl, chick e, shi hong, and other bird beasts were all bought by 20 or so high-grade primordial stones. Unfortunately, these bird beasts were not of the wood attribute. Fu Jiwen didn't say anything. Fu Jiwen, who always looked calm, was actually a little anxious. He stood in front of the windowsill and looked at the decreasing number of beast eggs. Fortunately, when the third last beast egg was auctioned, it was the wood attribute cloud crane that Fu Jiwen wanted, and he almost couldn't wait to bid. His bid didn't matter, but everyone was a little hesitant. After all, everyone had seen the bid for the water escape technique. Who would dare to compete with a virtuous senior? After a slight, awkward silence, this cloud crane was actually bought by Fu Jiwen for 10 or so high-grade primordial stones. But at this critical moment, young Master Duanmu started to bid again. Moreover, he increased the price by 5 high-grade primordial stones twice, and still raised the price of this cloud crane to the height of 25 high-grade primordial stones. Oomph! Xiao Hua sneered, and said in a low voice, "This is young Master Duanmu telling me that this is the last time he will be lenient. From now on, the bridge will be the bridge, and the road will be the road. He won't let go again. The conflict from before. Hee, I'm afraid it can't be revealed. Did I ruin fellow Taoist matter?" Fu Jiwen hurriedly said. He really didn't think that much. How about, I give it to young Master Duanmu? How is that possible? Doing this is adding fuel to the fire. Xiao Hua shook his head. Don't be afraid of him. This has nothing to do with you. 26 high-grade primordial stones. I want to see what will young Master Duanmu look like after he loses his mask. After Xiao Hua spoke, the entire auction house was silent. No one bid anymore, and the green crane egg flew to the window. Fu Jiwen took the green crane egg and carefully put it into the small Chinquan bag. Looking at Fu Jiwen's relieved expression, Xiao Hua suddenly asked curiously, "Young Master Fu, this small Chinquan bag can store living things?" "Of course." Fu Jiwen didn't find Xiao Hua's ignorance strange at all, and said with a smile, Chinquan means to form a universe of its own. Of course it can store living things. But no matter if it's the small Chinquan bag, the Chinquan bag, or even the Chinquan bangles, they can't store living things for long periods of time. After a certain period of time, the living things have to come out for air. In the following few bids, other than the remaining beast eggs, there were even a dozen young beasts. Although Xiao Hua hadn't seen these young beasts before, he wasn't interested in them. He had a lot of strange things in his space, and every one of them was more powerful than these young beasts. He wouldn't spend primordial stones for no reason. After the time it took to eat a meal, Yulin Feng finally finished processing the young beasts. Then he looked at the last golden ball of light on the outline of the 1,000-demon sacred realm, took a deep breath, and said loudly, "Fellow immortals, you should all know that every time my Bright Moon Palace bids for rare items, we leave the 3 most valuable items behind. The next item to bid is one of them." Swoosh! Once Yulin Feng said this, everyone held their breaths and looked at the golden ball of light with rapt attention. They didn't even want to breathe loudly and quietly listen to Yulin Feng's analysis. They really wanted to know what it was. This item, Yulin Feng didn't even take the item and said, "This item is only for the VIPs on the 3rd floor. As for the other immortals, I'm sorry, you don't have the qualifications to bid." Fellow immortal you. Just as Yulin Feng finished speaking, someone naturally wasn't convinced. He jumped up and said, I know the rules of star-picking tower very well. When the price of a rare item is set, only the VIPs on the third floor are qualified to bid. But this item hasn't even revealed its base price yet, so we're not allowed to bid? Could it be this item's base price is already exceeded? At this point, the cultivator seemed to have understood something and couldn't close his mouth. This was the first time he heard that the Bright Moon Palace bid for an item with a base price of more than 10 top-grade source stones. Yeah, it's not just the base price. Yulin Feng waved his hand and sighed. Even if you have enough source stones to bid, you still have to consider whether you have the strength to protect this item, whether you have the life to protect this item. SII. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air. With a wave of Yulin Feng's hand, the golden light slowly flew closer. The golden light was blazing. Although it hadn't revealed its true appearance, the indescribable heat was like the scorching sun, and it already made everyone in the Bright Moon Palace feel anxious and thirsty. A feeling of difficulty arose in everyone's hearts. Unconsciously, everyone slightly narrowed their eyes, but the desire in their eyes was even more intense than the scorching sun. They stared fixedly at the light, wanting to know just how rare this item was. When the light landed in front of Yulin Feng, it was actually dozens of feet wide. It was clear that Yulin Feng didn't dare to approach the light and had already flown to the top of the Bright Moon Palace. At the same time, wisps of blue mist emerged from all over the Bright Moon Palace like clouds, enveloping everyone in front of it and blocking the heat. Rise! Yulin Feng clapped his hands, and a rare imperial artifact that looked like an ink brush came out of his sleeves. He let out a roar like spring thunder and reached out his hand. The brush was about to throw towards the golden light. Wait! Just at this moment, an extremely loud and clear voice that was even more shocking than muffled thunder came from the windowsill on Xiaohua's left. SII. Even someone as strong as Xiaohua's mind was shaken by this voice. Xiaohua couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air and looked to his left in disbelief. This window, it seems like there hasn't been a bid. There hasn't even been a sound, right? It seems like their goal is this golden item. When Yulin Feng heard this voice, his body naturally trembled, and the ink brush remained in his hand. However, Yulin Feng's face didn't reveal the slightest bit of displeasure. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior upstairs, may I say something? There's no need to open this item." That voice was very imposing, and in people's ears, it seemed to resonate in their hearts. There was an inconceivable power that made people submit from the bottom of their hearts. Yes, this little one understands. Yulin Feng actually agreed and withdrew his hand, putting the ink brush back into his sleeve. Cough, cough. A clear coughing sound appeared at this time, and a ball of green light floated from the night sky of the Bright Moon Palace. Within the light, Zhu Qing had already changed into green clothes and slowly flew down like a student rushing to take the exam. When Yulin Feng saw Zhu Qing, he immediately sweated profusely. His usually calm expression was replaced with panic, and he hastily bowed and said, "Tower Lord, this subordinate. You can go down." Zhu Qing didn't talk to Yulin Feng as warmly as she talked to Xiaohua. Just a few words made Yulin Feng feel a chill in his heart. He didn't dare to ask anything, and hastily floated down from the sky. However, he still didn't dare to approach the golden light, and followed the edge of the Bright Moon Palace to stand in the shadows. Chapter 3289. Phew! Everyone let out a long breath. The feeling of being suppressed by the dragons was really terrible. It was like the struggle of a drowning person before death. That kind of suffocation, that kind of helplessness, that kind of insignificance was something that these people would probably never forget in their entire lives. This is good. What do you think?" Another arrogant voice shouted. "Do you think you can profane the dragon's remains? You can't even resist this dragon aura, yet you still dare to make a big fuss about it. Do you think the likes of you have the right to see it? Go!" Zhu Qing's face regained some color. She waved her hand, and the ink brush landed in her hand. Then she pushed her hand, and the dragon bone flew far away. It turned into a golden moon and hung in the night sky of the bright moon palace. Seniors. Zhu Qing bowed again, speaking softly. My star-picking tower has some unspeakable difficulties in bidding for this item in Bright Moon Palace. This matter was done in haste. You can see that I didn't even prepare an imperial item to block the dragon aura. You can see, I was caught unprepared. Of course, there are some things that Senior blames me too early. I, Zhaixing Liu, know very well what this dragon bone is. In front of the thousands of fellow immortals from the Bright Moon Palace, I can swear that I, Zhaixing Liu, have already sent people to contact Senior. It was only after we did not receive any news from Senior that we decided to bid for this dragon bone when the Bronze Pillar country was at war with other countries. As for how Senior got the news and rushed here, I don't know the reason. I wanted to explain it to Senior face to face, but Senior seems to have misunderstood. I can only explain it here. And that faint voice spoke, unknown if it meant it heard or understood. In short, when Zhu Qing heard this voice, he became spirited again and said, However, since the bidding has already begun, I would like to invite the seniors to make their own bids. This dragon bone, especially because of the dragon horn, this item is already priceless. I do not dare to profane the dragon bone, so I would like to invite the seniors to make their own bids. Zhu Qing's words were very clear, and Xiao Hua also understood. Not only did this dragon bone have some problems with its origin, but the bidding process was also very complicated. Zhaixing Liu had already known the importance of the dragon bone before the auction. He would definitely have contacted the East Sea Dragon Palace. Unfortunately, for some reason, there was no reply. Furthermore, the Bronze Pillar country was at war. Zhaixing Liu was afraid that there would be problems with the dragon bone. He was anxious to get rid of this hot potato, so he hurriedly sent the dragon bone to the auction. But what was surprising was that before the auction, someone from the East Sea Dragon Palace actually came. What's more, the person who came was very aggressive. They did not receive the message from Zhaixing Liu, but got the message from someone else. They were here to denounce Zhu Qing, so they did not listen to her explanation at all. As for Zhu Qing, it was even more difficult for her to dismount. After all, ordinary cultivators wouldn't know what items would be auctioned in this auction, but people like young Master Duanmu would definitely know. Perhaps the item that young Master Duanmu had mentioned earlier might really be this. For this, he was willing to sacrifice 3 supreme-grade primal stones. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for Zhu Qing to give the dragon bone to someone from the East Sea Dragon Palace for free. The only way was to bid. Poor child, Xiao Hua looked at Zhu Qing sympathetically and thought, It seems that everything is not easy. I'll bid. Although no name was mentioned, everyone already knew that the person who bid first was from the East Sea Dragon Palace. At this time, someone in the room said, No matter how many primal stones others bid, my East will have 1 supreme-grade primal stone more than them. Before the person from the East Sea Dragon Palace finished speaking, the voice that was a little leaky laughed shrilly and said, I know that your East Sea Dragon Palace has countless treasures, but it's not only your East Sea Dragon Palace that has treasures in this world. I have 10 supreme-grade primal stones more than the East Sea Dragon Palace. Then, all the other forces entered the auction and started bidding. On the balcony, Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the golden moon. He secretly pondered whether or not he should bid. Just now, the dragon, might above the dragon horn, was really terrifying. If it could be used on a magic weapon, it would absolutely be a sharp weapon to kill people. Oh, I forgot about it. Xiao Hua suddenly patted his forehead and woke up. Damn it, it doesn't matter if I want it or not. Isn't Little White lacking this thing? If Little White needs it, I'll buy it regardless of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Thinking, Xiao Hua's mind immediately turned into a jade archive. Xiao Hua appeared in front of the mysterious dark cloud. This mysterious dark cloud seems to have some changes. Because he had learned from the bone that ordinary people couldn't see souls, Xiao Hua paid special attention to this mysterious dark cloud. However, when he saw the heavenly marks and earth deeds on it, Xiao Hua couldn't help but stare blankly. Previously, although there were heavenly marks and earth deeds outside the mysterious dark cloud, These mysterious natural objects were faintly discernible and simply couldn't be seen clearly. But now, these heavenly might could be clearly seen, as if they were carved outside the mysterious dark cloud. Moreover, there were strands of green shadows entangling the heavenly might. Those heavenly marks and earth deeds were already like a tight armor wrapping around the mysterious dark clouds, and these green shadows gave off a green glow outside the armor, adding another layer of protection. Moreover, within the heavenly marks and earth deeds, there were some faint lightning and broken threads. Even Xiao Hua, who was in the Jade Archive, felt a burst of dizziness when he looked at these broken threads. Suddenly, a scene of 5 thunderbolts roaring appeared in front of his eyes. I'm afraid that the 9th heaven of spirit origin has made new progress. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. His figure hid in the dark cloud. The moment Xiao Hua's figure disappeared into the dark cloud, millions of lightning and broken threads were born from the dark cloud. However, as soon as Xiao Hua touched Xiao Hua's figure, his figure disappeared without a trace. Xiao Hua, you're here? When Jade Archive, Xiao Hua's figure appeared in the sky, the little white dragon immediately sensed it. The huge dragon head poked out from the top of the sky and called out with a smile. Xiao Hua glanced at Xiao Hua. At this time, the sky was incomparably spacious. Many green seal characters fluttered in the sky as if they were alive. Xiao Hua's incomparably huge dragon body was already entrenched at the junction between the sky and the sky, covering the entire horizon. Those countless dark green soul strands were like seaweed in the sea, entwining the dragon body. When the soul strands danced, the dragon body also danced. Countless dark green splendors were like fireflies that filled the sky. The soul cultivator Xiao Hua also transformed into a 100-zhang tall giant. His whole body was not surrounded by the soul strands. His body was everywhere. I'm here, Xiao Hua said indifferently. He looked at the soul cultivator Xiao Hua, who ignored him, and saluted. Fellow Taoist, you've worked hard. Buzz buzz. Countless green seal characters rushed out from the sea of soul strands. The soul cultivator Xiao Hua's figure slowly shrank, turning into the same appearance as Xiao Hua. He also cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist, I have a bone here and a soul treasure called the Soul Bridge. I don't know if I can give it to fellow Taoist to cultivate. Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Xiao Hua didn't smile. He only said indifferently, Fellow Taoist, please give it to me. Comprehending the bone and refining the soul treasure is my duty. Previously, my cultivation was insufficient and I couldn't control the 9th heaven of spirit origin. Now, with Xiao Bai's help, I can barely do it. Good. Xiao Hua laughed. The bone and soul treasure were comprehended by him, and even the soul treasure was refined by him. Now that he had the help of Xiao Hua, wouldn't he be able to save himself some trouble? Fellow Taoist, please take a look. With a wave of his hand, the Jade Archive Xiao Hua pulled the bone out of space and handed it to the soul cultivator Xiao Hua. The soul cultivator Xiao Hua didn't even bother to look at it. Instead, he opened his mouth, and several soul strands shot out like tentacles and swallowed the bone. Xiao Hua looked at this action with a dumbfounded expression. He smiled bitterly and said, Fellow Taoist, we are of the same origin. Can you be a bit more refined? Otherwise, don't say you know I in front of Xiao Bai. Xiao Hua responded indifferently. Obviously, he didn't take this to heart. Xiao Hua waved his hand again and said, This is another bone. There's a green seal character recorded in it. I haven't comprehended it yet, so I'll give it to you. Xiao Hua opened his mouth again. Xiao Hua hurriedly withdrew his hand, and the bone disappeared into thin air. Give it to me. Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and asked Xiao Hua for it. Pay attention to your manners. Xiao Hua put the bone in Xiao Hua's hand. The soul cultivator, Xiao Hua, took the bone and slowly placed it in front of his forehead, pressing it against his forehead. Good, that's how it should be. Jade Archive, Xiao Hua praised with satisfaction. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, Xiao Hua slapped his hand down, causing a ripple to appear on his forehead. Then his knuckles sank back in. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only say helplessly, "Fortunately, this can be considered as some progress." "What about the soul treasure? Let me see it," Xiaohua asked again. It seemed that he was very bored in the 9 heavens of spirit origin, and these bones and soul treasures were good things for him to pass the time. "Fellow Taoist, are you sure there is no problem?" Xiaohua still didn't dare to send the soul bridge that hadn't been refined into the mysterious dark clouds, and asked tentatively. Xiaohua said indifferently, "Fellow Taoist, if you want to take it, then take it. If you don't want to take it, then slowly refine it." "Okay." Xiaohua waved his hand, wanting to drag the bone ball to the endless sky. Unfortunately, beyond his expectations, he didn't see the bone ball appear even after waving his hand a few times. How strange. Jade Archive Xiaohua looked outside the dark clouds thoughtfully and said with a faint smile, "Let's go take a look." Xiaohua turned into a green light and rushed out of the endless sky. Xiaohua naturally followed him out of the mysterious dark clouds. Outside the dark clouds, the bone ball was stuck to the surface of the mysterious dark clouds and rotating at an extremely fast speed. The bone particles had long disappeared, leaving only layers of white flashing light. As for the mysterious dark clouds, where the bone ball touched, the heaven pattern earth deed was emitting a faint green light, blocking the bone ball. Moreover, where the bone ball touched, the thousands of lightning threads and broken fireflies also gathered to block the bone ball. Chapter 3290. This thing is a genuine soul item. According to the bone, it can change the shape of the soul bridge according to the soul of different people. It matches the heavenly pattern and earth deed of the soul. Only then can it enter the soul of another person. Soul cultivator Xiaohua said indifferently after taking a glance at it. "It seems I can only refine it myself." Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "Really? You're underestimating me too much." Soul cultivator Xiaohua waved his hand, and the bone ball fell into his hand. Then he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of green gas that covered the bone ball. The bone ball flew into the air and entered Xiaohua's mouth along with the green gas. Then soul cultivator Xiaohua rushed into the mysterious cloud, but the heavenly pattern and earth deed didn't react at all. "Good." Jade Archive Xiaohua clapped his hands. "That's the way to do it. That's the style of an expert." Jade Archive Xiaohua once again flew into the mysterious dark clouds. At this time, soul cultivator Xiaohua had already hidden himself within the soul strands. He knew that Jade Archive Xiaohua would no longer look for him. He didn't know if Jade Archive Xiaohua was cultivating the 9 heaven spirit origin or refining his soul bridge. "Fellow Taoist, my cultivation has yet to recover. Looking at the situation outside, I'm afraid I'll have to compete with others. Only then can I have a good ending. I wonder if fellow Taoist can lend me a hand?" Jade Archive Xiaohua raised his head and laughed. "You want me to go out?" Soul cultivator Xiaohua didn't show himself. Instead, he spoke with a thunderous voice, and thousands of green seal characters overflowed in the sky. "Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking." Jade Archive Xiaohua frowned and had a bad feeling in his heart. "Do you think I could go out?" Soul cultivator Xiaohua said indifferently, "I'm just a strand of your soul. Without another body, I'll turn into dust as soon as I go out." "But," Jade Archive Xiaohua thought of the soul inside the flying sword and was about to ask. Soul cultivator Xiaohua naturally knew what he was thinking and immediately said, "The soul in a flying sword is the carrier of the flying sword. Naturally, it can go out alone. Or perhaps, when your physical body perishes, our primordial spirits will be able to leave. As for now, it's absolutely impossible." External incarnation technique. Jade Archive Xiaohua suddenly thought of the body extension technique mentioned by the 10,000 Demon Realm Empress. That's right. Once you have successfully cultivated an avatar, perhaps all of us will be able to lend you a hand. Soul cultivator Xiao Hua replied. Actually, you should know all of this, but you forget it. Let's not talk about it. Having too many primordial divinities isn't necessarily a good thing for you. As Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua's voice disappeared, Jade Archive Xiao Hua's face turned awkward. Yes, as long as the Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua knew, the Jade Archive Xiao Hua should also know. But there was only one Jade Archive Xiao Hua. What Green Robe Xiao Hua? What Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua? What Karmic Xiao Hua? There are simply too many. There is no way he could learn all of these primordial divinities at once. He could only slowly assimilate and digest them. Forget it. Jade Archive Xiao Hua sighed as he thought of the important matter. He hurriedly called Little White over and told it about the dragon bones in the auction house. Then he asked, Little White, your soul is already full. Aren't you just waiting for this body? Many thanks, Xiao Hua. Whitey laughed loudly, its dragon roar echoing through the entire sky. What I want is a complete body. Not only do I want the dragon bones, but I also want the blood essence. These incomplete dragon bones. According to what you said, only the dragon horns are of some use. I can't use them. Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded and said, How do you say? I can only rely on my luck in the future. Let's leave it to fate. Anyway, I'm not in a hurry to go out. Little White didn't seem to mind, and then said somewhat apologetically, It's a pity that my memories are now very fragmented. I don't know what many of them are, so I can't give you any pointers in your cultivation. I'm really sorry. This is nothing. Jade Archive Xiao Hua laughed. You and I share weal and woe together. There's no need to mention these empty courtesies. And Little White's huge dragon head nodded up and down, and then said with some hesitation, With your cultivation level, I can just touch the layer of seal in your soul, but this seal is a bit strange. As for how strange it is, I'll have to enter it first. Hearing this, Jade Archive Xiao Hua's heart settled and said, Oh right, Little White, can you see my 9-heaven spirit? See? Little White didn't seem to understand. After thinking for a moment, it asked, Are you talking about the surroundings? Yes. Jade Archive Xiao Hua's heart jumped and nodded. I can. So many soul strands, so many green lines. How can I not see it? Little White answered straightforwardly. Jade Archive Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. What I mean is, when you enter here, can you see the shape of this place? I understand. You're talking about the appearance of this soul. Little White suddenly realized. That's right. Of course I can't see it. Little White laughed. Otherwise, why would I struggle with all my might when you drag me in? You can't see it? Jade Archive Xiao Hua was a little surprised. But why can I see your appearance? And you can even cultivate layer by layer? Xiao Hua, you have to understand. Being able to see and being able to sense are two different things. Little White explained. Moreover, the soul is fused with the body and is protected by the body. Others can't see it. A soul that has left the body can be called a soul and is no longer a soul. Perhaps it can be seen by others. Of course, even if it is the soul of the body, if there's a powerful secret technique that can surpass the protection of the body to the soul, perhaps it can be seen. Speaking to here, Little White apologized again. These are just some of my incomplete memories. I don't know if they are correct. It could be considered as a reference. And that is to say, if there is a soul sword piercing from the outside, Jade Archive Xiao Hua had a trace of understanding. This is just based on feeling. In fact, no matter what, their soul sword can't see the appearance of the soul. Yes, that should be the case. Little White nodded. The soul is the most mysterious place in the body. How can it be exposed there? Then, you may not be able to see the layer of seal in my soul, and by sensing it, the seal may be visible, but what is under the seal? I can only sense it, but not see it. Little White laughed. Jade Archive Xiao Hua frowned and said, Then you can slowly break the seal. I'll have to trouble you. You're welcome. Little White knew that Jade Archive Xiao Hua was about to leave, and the huge dragon head retracted into the sea of soul strands. Jade Archive Xiao Hua looked around. The sky was full of flickering lights and sighed. Alas, if this is a soul cultivator, it's really strange. But what's even stranger is this Zhao's Dharma eye. After speaking, Jade Archive Xiao Hua retreated from the mysterious dark clouds. However, when his primordial spirit returned, he was shocked again when he looked at the auction field. He saw that the auction field, which was very lively just a moment ago, was now completely silent. Even Zhu Qing was silently standing in the air with her lips tightly shut. Although there was a trace of a smile on her face, there was a trace of strangeness in her eyes. Strange. Xiao Hua was puzzled. It was only a moment. What happened? However, the bright moon, which was as bright as the sun, was still hanging there. Obviously, the bidding for the dragon bones was not over yet. Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and was about to ask Fu Jiwen when he suddenly saw Zhu Qing's somewhat helpless expression. He came to a realization. Damn it, this is the voice transmission of the people from the Dragon Palace, young Master Duanmu, and a few cultivators who have the strength to bid for the dragon bones. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua laughed in his heart. In this world, there is nothing that can't be compromised. As long as there are enough benefits, everything can be exchanged. A set of dragon bones can be measured with top-grade primordial stones, and a promise can also be measured with top-grade primordial stones. These people just now were all very aggressive. One wanted to add one top-grade primordial stone more than the others, and another wanted to add 10 top-grade primordial stones more than everyone else, as if the dragon bones were something that must be obtained. But in fact, only the East Sea Dragon Palace had the intention to obtain it. The others were just looting a burning house, wanting to gain benefits from it. It seems that I should have bid just now. Maybe I can even get a high-level water escape technique. Strange. Just when Xiao Hua was thinking whether it was too late to bid now, Fu Jiwen whispered, "This has been discussed for a long time. Why hasn't the result come out yet? Could it be that, besides the East Sea Dragon Palace, there is someone who urgently needs this thing?" Ha ha ha. For a moment, Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. Xiao Hua was definitely not the only smart person in this world. Although Fu Jiwen's cultivation was ordinary, he obviously understood the strangeness of it. What does young Master Fu think? Besides the East Sea Dragon Palace, who else needs this dragon bone? Xiao Hua naturally did not know, so he could only ask in order to advance and retreat. Fu Jiwen looked out a window at the slightly strange third floor and whispered, "This dragon bone may be an excellent material for refining weapons in the eyes of Taoist cultivators. In the eyes of Buddhists, it is also a material for refining Buddhist weapons. In the eyes of the East Sea Dragon Palace, it is the remains of a senior to be revered and collected. But in the eyes of Confucian cultivators, the most important thing is the fate of the royal family." What? The fate of the royal family? This dragon bone has something to do with fate? That's right. Fu Jiwen nodded. The fate of the royal family is related to the amount of imperial qi of the royal family descendants. And the dragon aura on the dragon bone, especially the dragon horn, can be transformed into imperial qi with the help of Confucian cultivators' secret techniques. Xiao Hua understood and glanced at the third floor's windowsill. There must be a royal family of the Bronze Pillar Country on the third floor. Also, Zhaixing Lu is eagerly bidding for this dragon bone, probably because they are afraid of attracting the attention of the royal families of various countries, especially the royal family of the Bronze Pillar Country. There is definitely no royal family of the Bronze Pillar Country here, Fu Jiwen said decisively. There can only be the royal family of another country, and the king of the Bronze Pillar Country is definitely not in the country. The regent should be the crown prince, and the relationship between the crown prince and Zhaixing Lu is ordinary. Chapter 3291. Yes. When Xiao Hua heard that Fu Jiwen was able to read so much information from it, he couldn't help but feel surprised. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he couldn't help but be convinced. He nodded and said, "If the king of the Copper Pillar Country was here, this dragon bone would definitely be left in the royal family of the Copper Pillar country. But since the dragon bone is being auctioned here, your king must not know. Since he doesn't know, Zhaixing Lu won't inform the other royal family members. Otherwise, Zhaixing Lu won't exist in Bronze Pillar country. Those who can come can only be the royal family of other countries. But the problem is, since the East Sea Dragon Palace is here, which royal family is not afraid of the East Sea Dragon Palace and dares to compete with them? Hearing this, Xiaohua finally understood Fu Jiwen's real doubts. Xiaohua shrugged and said with a smile, "The hidden immortal continent is so big. Who knows?" Xiaohua stopped talking. Nonsense. Zhaixing Lu organized the bidding for the dragon bone in such a hurry. How could they invite all the royal families of the hidden immortal continent? It must be the royal family of Yuzhou or the vicinity of Yuzhou. Although there were many royal families, Fu Jiwen must know these royal families like the back of his hand with the practice of reading 10,000 books and traveling 1,000 miles. Even he found it strange. There must be a secret behind this matter. There were many secrets in this world, and the answers to these secrets were definitely known by someone. However, as for who that person was, that was another mystery. However, the secret of this matter is obviously not something the cultivators of Bright Moon Palace can know. Just as Fu Jiwen was racking his brains to calculate, the voice of the East Sea Dragon Palace sounded again. "Young Master Zhu, this old man wants to buy this item." Then the voice disappeared again. But seeing Zhu Qing's expression lighten, he shouted again, "Okay, we'll do as Senior says. This item belongs to Senior." Saying this, Zhu Qing waved his hand, and the ink brush flew out from his sleeve and rushed to the balcony on the 3rd floor. How can this old man use Zhaixing Lu's item? A strange sound was heard again. Woo! A gust of wind suddenly came from a balcony on the 3rd floor. Immediately, the golden full moon was elongated. The dragon might that appeared earlier rushed everywhere again. However, this time, it seemed to be a demonstration of the East Sea Dragon Palace. The dragon might disappeared as soon as it appeared. Then, the golden brilliance fell somewhere on the 3rd floor. Inside the Bright Moon Palace, the golden light disappeared, and the ink brush fell from the sky. Zhu Qing flew over and caught the ink brush, but didn't fly back. Instead, she stood there silently. When Yu Linfeng saw this, he hastily flew out from his hiding place. At this moment, he had already regained his smile and naturally cupped his hands towards the surrounding people. "Fellow immortals, I've made you wait for a long time. I'm back. There aren't many opportunities left for us to bid. If any fellow immortals are still hesitating, don't say I didn't warn you. If you miss this village, there won't be another shop like this one. If you want to find another good treasure, like tonight's auction, I'm afraid it won't be too possible." This guy really knows how to talk. Xiaohua smiled. Yu Linfeng's words covered everyone's awkwardness and his own mistake. He even teased them a few times, which eased the atmosphere by quite a bit. Suddenly, Yu Linfeng slapped his forehead again, as if he had just woken up. He shouted, I'm afraid I was wrong. Everyone has been waiting for this moment, right? Waiting to bid. Flying Imperial equipment, right?" As he spoke, Yu Linfeng tapped the folding fan in his hand. A small boat flew over from the distant light spot. The boat's bow trembled as if it was riding the waves. This is an ink boat personally made by a disciple of Hidden Immortal Continent School of Moism. It has the School of Moism's unique symbol. It's a real deal. Yu Linfeng seemed to have grasped the rhythm of the auction. He regained his confidence and introduced it with a smile. "School of Moism?" Xiaohua heard this from upstairs and asked Fu Jiwen, "School of Moism should also be one of the schools of the 100 Schools of Thought, right?" "Indeed." Fu Jiwen nodded and said, "This school of Moism is very powerful. It's second only to Confucianism. Previously, there was a saying that anyone who wasn't a Confucian was a school of Moism. The founder of School of Moism was Mod. Later on, he was revered as Z, or Mozi. This school of thought uses love with impartiality, mutual benefit, as its basis. Impartiality means to see others as oneself. Love with impartiality means to love others as oneself. Love with impartiality can achieve the goal of mutual benefit. Politically, they advocate for virtuousness, unity, and non-aggression. Economically, they advocate for a strong economy and frugality. Ideologically, they advocate for respecting the heavens and ghosts. At the same time, they also advocate for non-life, emphasizing on relying on one's own strength. Love with impartiality, non-aggression, virtuousness, unity, frugality, non-happiness, heavenly will, understanding ghosts, and non-life. This is what all disciples of School of Moism must practice. If it's only like this, then this School of Moism can't be considered powerful. Fu Jiwen said again, School of Moism is unique in 2 points. First, School of Moism has a strict organization. Most of its members come from the lower strata of society. According to legend, all of them are willing to go through fire and tread on knives to inspire themselves. Their disciples who engage in debating are called Mabian. Those who engage in martial arts are called Masha. Their leaders are called Ju. Their discipline is strict and clear. According to legend, School of Moism, those who kill will die. Those who injure will be punished. Oh? Isn't that a ranger? Hearing this, Xiao Hua came to a realization. He originally thought that a ranger was something from Confucianism. He didn't expect that it was actually from School of Moism. Yes, a ranger is from School of Moism. Fu Jiwen nodded. However, that's an ancient matter. In today's 100 schools of Confucianism, which youth doesn't want to be a free and unfettered ranger? Which school doesn't have a few rangers whose names will be remembered for hundreds of generations? Then what's the second powerful point? Xiao Hua seemed to have thought of something. Is it this flying device? Correct. What fellow Taoist Xiao thinks is correct. Fu Jiwen said with a smile. According to legend, Senior Moism is an expert in craftsmanship. His wisdom and dexterity far surpass the other schools of Confucianism. He can be said to be knowledgeable and multi-talented. It is said that he can instantly cut a 3-inch piece of wood into an ingenious object that can carry more than 600 kilograms. This ingenious object doesn't rely on noble spirit. According to Han Fizi Y Chua Shua's, Moism is a wood kite. It took him 3 years to succeed and 1 day to fail. Even in ancient times, in order to teach the people, Moism even used leverage to develop oranges to carry water. He also made pulleys, ladders, and so on for production and military purposes. He was also an expert in city defense techniques, the so-called Moism. His disciples summarized his experience into the 21 chapters of city defense. These mechanical techniques of his are the embryonic form of our current Confucianism's imperial equipment. It can be said that Confucianism's imperial equipment came from School of Moism. Unfortunately, Moism's views are tit for tat with Confucianism. He opposes the system of feudal officials and advocates valuing the virtuous. When appointing officials, one must pay attention to talent. He breaks the old concept of hierarchy and makes officials impermanent and the people impermanent. Therefore, in ancient times, Confucianism and School of Moism fought very fiercely. School of Moism was suppressed by Confucianism to the point of choking. Looks like this esoteric debate is also a matter of luck. School of Moism's luck is far inferior to Confucianism's. Xiao Hua says with a smile. This Xiao does not understand the essence of School of Moism, but it sounds somewhat similar to my Taoist refiners. Indeed, Fu Jiwen nods and says, most of the Confucianism's refiners are basically School of Moism's disciples, although they don't admit it. Moreover, speaking to here, Fu Jiwen pauses for a bit. He glances at Xiao Hua and says, previously I told fellow Taoist about the mysterious demon god chess, right? On the hidden immortal continent, there's a rather strange saying. That is, the demon god chess was originally owned by School of Moism. Senior Moism obtained a lot of enlightenment from the demon god chess. The mechanism technique and the refining technique also originated from the demon god chess. Hearing this, Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. Previously, Fu Jiwen's understanding of the godly devil chess, the most mysterious of the 10 great imperial artifacts, could be considered vague. But now, Fu Jiwen's last sentence made Xiao Hua feel somewhat enlightened. The godly devil chess, the 6 great generals, the 6 great demon realms, weren't they puppets? It's just that this kind of puppet is really high level and can resist a real cultivator. That's right, young Master Fu. Confucianism also has puppets, right? Puppets? Fu Jiwen stares blankly for a moment. Soon after, he somewhat understands and says with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Xiao should be talking about puppets." Puppets? Xiao Hua has never heard of this name. He tries to probe. Is it to take some materials and refine them, and then listen to the orders of the refiner like a human? Yes, it's puppets. Fu Jiwen nods and says, "Fellow Taoist Xiao is right. School of Moism indeed has this method to make puppets. This is not rare in the hidden immortal continent." Oh, if you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have noticed. Puppets didn't appear in today's auction. Then that's it. Xiao Hua nods. That demon god chess should be the puppets that School of Moism is talking about. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Fu Jiwen shakes his head. There are many people in the hidden immortal continent who are as knowledgeable as fellow Taoist Xiao. They didn't say anything, I'm afraid. Fu Jiwen doesn't finish, but obviously Bing doesn't agree with what Xiao Hua says. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Xiao Hua laughs. School of Moism is an aristocratic family of mechanics. They're also the best at imperial artifacts. Their strength cannot be underestimated. They're the strongest opponent of Confucianism. Fu Jiwen mutters. How can the demon god chess be puppets? Who can control such a powerful puppet? Furthermore, the biggest opponent of Confucianism is no longer School of Moism. Xiao Hua naturally doesn't have any evidence to say that the demon god chess is a puppet. Everything is just a guess. But Fu Jiwen mutters in the end. He laughs again. This Xiao naturally knows. Currently, Confucianism's opponent is Buddhist sect. Although it's a tripartite balance of power, it seems that Thousand Demons' sacred realm isn't too interested in Pure Land and hidden immortal continent. Fu Jiwen sees that School of Moism's ink boat has already been sold out. He subconsciously reminds fellow Taoist Xiao, if you want to freely gallop in the hidden immortal continent, having a good spirit beast or flying imperial artifact is the best choice. Fellow Taoist Xiao didn't bid for the previous spirit beast. It's better to bid for an imperial artifact. Chapter 3292. It doesn't matter. Xiao Hua waves his hand. He has the refining method of Imperial Thunder Sect's Thunderboat in his space, as well as enough materials. If given time, refining a real Thunderboat is not a problem. Who cares about some ink boat? Tell me, why is Moism not the opponent of Confucianism? Then Buddhism and demons are also not the biggest threat to Confucianism? Alas, fellow Xiao, haven't you heard that those who are defeated internally must be defeated externally? Or should I say, to resist external aggression, one must first pacify internal affairs. Fu Jiwen sighs and says, nowadays, the biggest problem of Confucianism is not Buddhism, but themselves. Oh, what do you mean? Xiao Hua is surprised. Isn't this hidden immortal continent the world of Confucianism? Fellow Xiao, you know the words political and martial arts, right? Of course. Who doesn't know those who have read books? Xiao Hua is somewhat baffled. Political and martial arts are naturally used to govern the world. Fu Jiwen says in a low voice, but what about martial arts? That is to use martial arts to expand the territory. Isn't this normal? Xiao Hua scratches his head. What's so strange about it? If it's just one school's opinion, it naturally doesn't matter. But if it's two schools' debate, one specialized in martial arts and the other in political, then wouldn't it be contradictory? Fu Jiwen's voice is even lower. Xiao Hua is speechless. Looking at the flying equipment that is still bidding, he doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. What young master said is too vague. I can't understand it. In ancient times, the one who opposed Confucianism was Moism. Now, Moism's disciples are reduced to great masters. They don't pose a threat to Confucianism, but Confucianism's disciples are proficient in the 6 arts. But after all, they are scholars. They are often ridiculed for not having the strength to truss a chicken. Now, the one who opposes Confucianism is militarism. Fu Jiwen finally says hidden immortal continent's biggest worry. Militarism? Xiao Hua is speechless. He naturally doesn't know what militarism is. Fu Jiwen is already used to Xiao Hua's ignorance. He patiently explains. The ancestor of militarism is the outstanding military expert Sun Wu. This senior is also respected as a son, his grandson. His work is the famous military book, Sun's Art of War. It was a military masterpiece, the earliest military book on the hidden immortal continent. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated, and other military sayings came from this book. Even now, it enjoyed a great reputation on the hidden immortal continent. Many academies listed it as a must-study book. The militarists are opposed to empty talk of benevolence and righteousness. They advocate victory and strength, so the world is convinced. Of course, this is only their school's opinion. The most terrifying thing is their martial arts. Fu Jiwen continued. The art of war may be a contest between countries, but martial arts is a direct attack on the Confucians' refined politeness, ruling the world with etiquette and winning people with virtue. Use virtue to win people over. Use virtue to win people over. This Xiao rubbed his nose, his heart filled with sorrow. If literary governance is the ideology of Confucianism, then martial arts is the ideology of the school of military strategy. Fu Jiwen smiled bitterly. The Confucian school uses words to contain the noble spirit and uses it to defeat the enemy. The militarists, on the other hand, use their fists, kicks, and martial techniques to trigger the noble spirit and use it to win. This Xiao seems to understand a little. Xiao Hua understood martial techniques, so he naturally knew the difference. He nodded. It's a pity that martial techniques have a high requirement for one's aptitude. It's different from the Confucian school. As long as one is not unbearably ignorant, one can study. Therefore, although the militarists are somewhat tyrannical and overbearing, they are still not a match for the Confucian school. Fu Jiwen concluded. The bronze pillar state seems to be the militarists? Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something in his mind. Perhaps it's not that serious, Xiao Hua smiled. Don't the legalists also have flying swords? Don't they also use the noble spirit to activate the flying swords? This is no different from using martial techniques to activate the noble spirit. It should be different. Fu Jiwen smiled bitterly. Martial artists are people who strive for strength and courage. It's very contrary to the Confucian school's philosophy of using words and not actions. Moreover, the Confucian school emphasizes etiquette to educate the world, while the militarists use force to conquer the world. So, Xiao Hua hit the nail on the head. This is the fundamental difference between the Confucian school and the militarists. It has nothing to do with martial techniques. In fact, this is also the choice of the rulers of the various countries due to their own greed and ambition. It has nothing to do with the Confucian school or the militarists. Fu Jiwen thought for a moment and nodded slightly. Fellow Taoist Xiao can see clearly. Most of the rulers of countries that promote martial arts and strive to expand their territory are heavily influenced by the militarists. This bronze pillar state seems to be controlled by the militarists? Perhaps. Xiao Hua was not particularly interested in the struggle between the Confucian cultivators and the militarists. As he spoke, he looked at the auction. The hidden immortal continent had a lot of flying imperial tools, and their styles were also strange. In addition to flying boats, there were also carriages, houses, flying birds, and so on. What was special was that there were actually 2 fish-shaped imperial tools, which opened Xiao Hua's eyes. After Yu Linfeng finished bidding for these flying imperial tools one by one, he looked at the two balls of light above the hidden immortal continent and above the thousand demons' sacred realm. He took a deep breath and said, "Fellow Taoists, the tense moment has finally arrived. There are still two things that have not been shown to fellow Taoists in this auction. Aside from the treasure of the thousand demons' sacred realm, these are the two most precious things. Similarly, these two things can only be bid for by the VIPs on the balcony. Fellow Taoists below the balcony, due to the lack of primeval stones that my Zhaixing Lu has, we cannot bid. Please forgive us, fellow Taoists. This time, when everyone heard Yu Linfeng's words, no one dared to be noisy. The last two treasures were on par with the dragon bones. They were absolutely priceless treasures. When the dragon bones appeared, everyone had suffered a lot. Now, they naturally knew that this treasure wasn't something they could get their hands on. The only thing they could do was look at it and enjoy it. Fellow Taoist Yu, this auction is really long. Hurry up and explain the treasures that are about to be auctioned." A voice urgently said, "Although we don't have enough primeval stones to bid, it's good to be able to broaden our horizons." "Okay." Yu Linfeng raised his hand and pointed his fan. The light above the hidden immortal continent slowly flew over. However, under everyone's expectant gazes, it only flew halfway before stopping. Yu Linfeng continued, "Fellow Taoists, have you heard of the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot?" Yu Linfeng's words were truly shocking. Everyone was stunned after hearing this. The cultivator who asked the question almost stuttered. Fellow Taoist Yu, are you sure you're not mistaken? This Scarlet Emperor, is it one of the 5 ancient heavenly emperors? The one that killed the 1,000 demon sacred realms Kuan Peng and fought against immortal Emperor Gochun for 1,000 years? Yu Linfeng, this is the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot that he used to command thousands of generals and defeat immortal Emperor Gochun. Another person hastily shouted. It seemed that this Scarlet Emperor and Scarlet Emperor's war chariot were something that everyone on the hidden immortal continent knew about. Fellow Taoists, Yu Linfeng hastily smiled and said, "Don't worry, didn't I already say before? Our Zhaixing Lu's auction won't have anything too rare." "You don't mean what you say, fellow Taoist Yu. That dragon bone just now, isn't it rare?" Before Yu Linfeng could finish, someone interrupted him. Yu Linfeng wasn't angry and smiled. "There are exceptions to everything, right? The dragon bone just now was personally bid by my lord, and this item was bid by me. Do you think this is the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot?" "Ha ha!" Someone on the 3rd floor laughed. "If it really is the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot, then I'm afraid we don't have the qualifications to be VIPs here. Fellow Taoist Yu, hurry up and reveal it." "Yes, senior." Yu Linfeng heard this and hastily bowed. He pointed the fan in his hand, and the light that stopped in the air flew over again. As it flew closer, a silhouette of several feet in size appeared. Before anyone could see it clearly, there was a loud bang, and a crimson flame rushed out from the brilliance. A feeling of being burned by fire involuntarily arose in everyone's hearts. Moreover, the fiery red light was very glaring. Everyone's eyes were once again blinded by the glare. However, even with their eyes closed, the simple and unadorned yet ferocious battlefield was still reflected in everyone's eyes. Good heavens, this war chariot is really powerful. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and felt the hot aura of the battlefield. He couldn't help but whisper, "The material used to make this war chariot is very special. It can emit fire-type spiritual energy. The cultivator who drives this war chariot can use this war chariot to display power that is even more powerful than a magic treasure. Moreover, this war chariot itself contains a baleful aura, full of blood and resentment. Even if it isn't the real Scarlet Emperor's war chariot, it must have gone through thousands of battles, and tens of thousands of people must have died under this war chariot. If one sits on this war chariot and flies, not to mention it's awe-inspiring, even some cowardly cultivators would have to hide far away. If one were to fight with others, it would make them tremble in fear, and they wouldn't be able to display even 70% of their cultivation. Shua, Yulin Feng, whose face was also illuminated by the scarlet flame, took out a palm-sized jade bottle from his bosom. With a wave of his hand, the jade bottle emitted a misty light. It was like a layer of gauze that completely covered the war chariot, and the scarlet flame was contained within the gauze. Fellow immortals, Yulin Feng clapped his hands and laughed. This is a replica of the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot. It's called the Scarlet Flame War Chariot. Although this Scarlet Flame War Chariot is a replica of the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot, its size and carvings are exactly the same. What's special is that this Scarlet Flame War Chariot was also owned by a general who commanded tens of thousands of troops. He also relied on this war chariot to achieve great achievements on the battlefield. It's not convenient for me to announce the specific details of this Scarlet Flame War Chariot here. However, what I can reveal to fellow immortals is that this war chariot's entire body is made from a complete piece of fire spirit stone. Sealed within it are the soul essences of 3 fire spirit beasts. Without the strength of 4th grade essence energy, it is impossible to control it. Chapter 3293. All the cultivators were shocked. A whole piece of fire spirit stone? How many top-grade primordial stones will it cost? Fire spirit stone is precious, but don't forget the 3 fire spirit beasts inside. Those are fire-bathing spirit beasts. They were extinct in ancient times. Xiaohua didn't care about the material of the Scarlet Flame War Chariot, but after hearing about the fire spirit stone, he hurriedly scanned it with his divine sense and couldn't help but groan. Oh my God, this is a fire essence flame crystal. Such a big piece of fire essence flame crystal is actually made into a war chariot. And there are 3 spirit beast souls inside. If it's a real Scarlet Emperor war chariot, what will it look like? Of course, Xiaohua also understood that the Scarlet Emperor war chariot must look like this Scarlet Flame war chariot, but he just couldn't imagine that there was a material more precious than the fire essence flame crystal. This was what they meant by there was no best, only better. Not bad, this war chariot is excellent. I like it very much. Little friend you, how much is this war chariot? A faint voice came from the room of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Senior, the starting price of this war chariot is 50,000 top-grade primordial stones. Yulin Feng hurriedly said respectfully. Every increment is 1,000 top-grade primordial stones. Okay, I bid 50,000 top-grade primordial stones. The person from the East Sea Dragon Palace opened the bidding without hesitation. Your East Sea Dragon Palace is in the East Sea. The water element primordial chi is rich. What use can the Scarlet Flame War Chariot be in the East Sea? A woman's voice said faintly. I could bid 60,000 top-grade primordial stones. Sister already has so many ceremonial guards. Why do you still need this war chariot? This little sister just so happens to be lacking a carriage. So this item can be given to this little sister. Another delicate girl spoke up. This little sister bids 61,000. I bid 65,000. Xiaohua didn't show any weakness. This was a big piece of fire essence flame crystal. The price of 60,000 top-grade primordial stones was definitely not high. Moreover, Xiaohua really liked this war chariot and wanted to use it as a means of transportation. 67,000. An old man at the side immediately said. On the contrary, young Master Duanmu, whom Xiaohua was worried about, did not bid. However, Xiaohua understood after thinking for a bit. Young Master Duanmu had the dragon horse and the golden carriage. Naturally, he did not need this Scarlet Flame War Chariot. There were many VIPs who had taken a liking to the Scarlet Flame War Chariot. In just a few moments, the price had been raised to 100,000. However, it was clear that this price was far from the limit. The people on the 3rd floor leisurely increased the price bit by bit. Meanwhile, the people downstairs were already dumbfounded. Previously, the bidding for the Dragon Bone was done through voice transmission, so they did not hear it. But now, The number of top-grade primordial stones that had not been decided had far exceeded their expectations. For a time, all kinds of envious and jealous gazes fell on the blurry balcony on the third floor. Apart from the East Sea Dragon Palace, who were the other clans? Everyone was whispering and guessing. Naturally, Xiaohua's identity had also become a mystery. Everyone was guessing who the person who had previously competed with young Master Duanmu was, and who had now suddenly bid for the Scarlet Flame War Chariot was. In the crowd, there was a Stardust figure whose gender could not be determined and whose height could not be determined. He did not talk to anyone and only coldly raised his head. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the illusory balcony. He seemed to be carefully observing and also seemed to be carefully distinguishing the cultivator who was competing with him for the cultivation method. As the number of primordial stones increased, the number of people bidding also decreased. In the end, only Xiaohua and 2 girls were bidding. After Xiaohua called out a number, the entire auction house was silent. The 2 girls stopped, as if they had retreated. Yu Linfeng's face was flushed red as he said loudly, "If the 2 seniors do not increase the price, this Scarlet Flame War Chariot will be this senior's." Then, Yu Linfeng said to Xiaohua, "Senior, you should know that this War Chariot is really rare. If Senior wants to take this War Chariot, you must first complete the transaction of primordial stones." "Well said." Xiaohua faintly smiled and was about to call Xiao Yi in. But at this time, a slightly weak voice spoke. "Fellow immortal you, please wait a moment." "Oh." Yu Linfeng raised his eyebrows. "Senior wants to bid?" Following the girl's chuckle, a light smoke like fog appeared from the windowsill. In a moment, the 3-story balcony was covered. The people downstairs were immediately separated from the 3rd floor. The fog blocked everyone's vision and divine sense. In front of Xiaohua's eyes, the source of the voice came from. As the fog gushed out, a window was slowly pushed open. The face of a girl in her 20s appeared in front of the window. This woman's skin was as white as snow, and her eyes were as bright as stars. Her 2 faint eyebrows were black without drawing, and her small cherry lips carried a graceful smile. Coupled with her light red palace dress, she could make 100 flowers blush to death. Looking at her fairy-like features, Xiaohua was momentarily dazed. Her beauty was completely different from Xue Xue and Fairy Hongxia. Other than her innate beauty, it was more of an aura and charm that she had nurtured. "Fellow immortal," the girl opened her mouth. Her voice was still somewhat weak, and her brows were slightly furrowed. This caused Xiaohua's heart to ache. He couldn't help but want to speak. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could speak, Fu Jiwen had already spoken. "Fairy, if you have something to say, please speak. This junior is all ears." The girl pursed her lips and smiled, saying, "Little friend, this servant is Princess Bai Hua of Liang Province's Chanu country. My name is Exine. This Scarlet Flame War Chariot is exactly what this servant needs. I wonder if little friend can explain it to your esteemed teacher?" Hearing this, Fu Jiwen's face turned red. He looked at Xiaohua somewhat embarrassedly and hurriedly shut his mouth. His eyes didn't dare to look at Princess Bai Hua. Xiaohua looked at Princess Bai Hua's beautiful face. He circulated God's guidance in his body, but didn't find anything strange. He knew in his heart that Princess Bai Hua didn't use any soul-sucking secret technique. Everything was based on her own beauty. This kind of beauty even made him slightly dazed. Fu Jiwen's answer really didn't count for anything. "So if it's Princess in front of me, I really am a bit rude." Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. "This servant has already told fellow immortal my name. Fellow immortal shouldn't be so stingy, right?" Princess Bai Hua looked somewhat embarrassed and angry. However, this embarrassment and anger made people feel inferior. Xiaohua only cursed himself in his heart for being foolish. The girl had already told him her name. He was actually such a bastard that he didn't even tell her his name. "I, Xiaohua, greets Princess." "Oh, so it's fellow immortal Xiao. This servant really hasn't heard of fellow immortal's name." Princess Bai Hua's face was filled with astonishment. "May I know where fellow immortal is cultivating?" This Xiao was originally a loose cultivator from overseas. Princess not knowing this servant's name is really too normal. Fellow immortal Xiao, do you have a place to stay? Princess Baihua hurriedly smiled and said, although my Chanu country wasn't founded by Taoist sect, we still welcome capable people like fellow immortal Xiao. If fellow immortal Xiao doesn't mind, you can come to my Chanu country to be the country's teacher. Xiaohua almost agreed. However, when the words were about to come out of his mouth, he immediately came to his senses and said with a smile, Princess has misunderstood. This Xiao's cultivation is shallow. How could I dare to be the country's teacher? Princess, if you have something to say, just say it. This Scarlet Flame War Chariot, this Xiao really likes it. Hee, since fellow immortal Xiao is so straightforward, this servant won't be polite. Princess Baihua smiled again. It was really like 100 flowers blooming. Scarlet Flame War Chariot, as the name suggests, is a war chariot. It's not a simple flying imperial equipment. It's used for battle. If fellow immortal Xiao doesn't want to lead troops in battle and doesn't want to be the commander of 10,000 troops, this Scarlet Flame War Chariot is really not as suitable as those flying imperial equipment from before. This Xiao doesn't want to be the commander now, but it doesn't mean that I won't be able to in the future, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Princess Baihua slightly nodded her head. Fellow immortal Xiao, this servant congratulates you in advance for having this ambition. However, fellow immortal Xiao, this is your future ambition. This servant needs this Scarlet Flame War Chariot right now. This servant is now facing a battle, and this Scarlet Flame War Chariot is a great help for this servant. Forget it. I won't hide it from fellow immortal Xiao. This servant will tell you the truth. My Chanu country has always had a princess take over the throne. Like this servant, there are 2 other princesses who are qualified to take over the throne. The country wants to choose one of the 3 of us to take over the Chanu country. Naturally, there are methods to choose. One of them is to be the commander and fight. With this Scarlet Flame War Chariot, this servant will be like a tiger that has grown wings, increasing my chances of success by 10%. Speaking to this point, Princess Baihua slightly hesitated. She looked to the side and said, Murong family's big sister originally also liked this war chariot and wanted to use it as a ride. However, after hearing this servant's difficulties, she already gave this war chariot to this servant, Sai. A voice of hidden bitterness sounded like the cry of a group of kingfishers. That so-called Murong family's big sister opened her mouth and said, Your Highness Princess, you can just say what you want. Why do you have to drag this servant into the water? This servant only pulled on Murong family's banner. That's all. Elder sister doesn't need to mind. Princess Baihua laughed. Even Xiao Hua had the heart to reprimand her, let alone Murong family's elder sister. Forget it, Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, although this war chariot is not bad, this Xiao has the heart to take it. However, since Princess has a more important matter, this Xiao can give it to you. This servant knew that fellow immortal Xiao would give this servant face. Princess Baihua was overjoyed, and this servant will also remember fellow immortal's favor. In my Chanu country's treasury, there are some Taoist magic treasures as well as some cultivation methods and secret techniques. However, this servant does not have them with me. If possible, when you have free time, fellow immortal can come to my Chanu country. This servant will return this favor to fellow immortal. Good, Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, As you wish. Good. Princess Baihua faintly smiled and stretched out her hand. Her fingers that were whiter than white jade waved. A white flower flew through the pink mist and landed in front of Xiao Hua. Princess Baihua's voice sounded in Xiao Hua's ear. This is this servant's token. Fellow immortal can use this thing to report in front of this servant's palace door. Chapter 3294. Thank you, Your Highness. Xiao Hua looked at the flower that was like an ice sculpture. He reached out his hand and caught it. He put it in front of his nose and sniffed it. He said, If possible, this Xiao hopes that the palace door is the palace of the Queen of Cha New Country. Ha 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 ha, as you wish. When the time comes, this princess will hold a banquet for you in the palace. Princess Baihua laughed a few times. Her long sleeves fluttered, and the pink fog slowly disappeared, revealing the auction field. Seeing that the fog had dissipated, Yu Linfeng cautiously asked, I wonder which senior withdrew. This old man has limited primeval stones. This old man withdraws. Xiao Hua said indifferently. Boom! The entire auction field exploded again. Many people didn't expect that the aggressive Xiao Hua would actually withdraw in the end. Good, if so, this Scarlet Flame War Chariot will be this senior's. Yu Linfeng didn't hesitate and said, Senior, please hand over the primeval stones to Xiao Yi. This one will send the War Chariot to Senior's window. TSK, TSK. So this is Princess Baihua of Cha New Country. Xiao Hua indifferently looked at the Scarlet Flame War Chariot flying toward Princess Baihua. Fu Jiwen at the side exclaimed, This one has long heard that Cha New Country has many beauties. The queen and the princess are peerless beauties. Now that I see them, they are really rare in the world. The queen of Cha New Country is a woman? Those who compete for the throne are also princesses? What about those princes? What about the queen's husband? Xiao Hua was somewhat baffled. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, Fellow Xiao may not know. This Cha New Country is full of women. There are no men. Even the women of Cha New Country give birth to girls. I don't see half a boy. Then how do they get pregnant? Xiao Hua was a bit flabbergasted. Fu Jiwen shrugged his shoulders and shook his head in a strange manner. Every year, there is a Tilean festival in the Cha New Country. It lasts for 7 days. Any young man in the hidden immortal continent can come to the Cha New Country. If any man is fancied by a woman of the Cha New Country, fellow Daoist Xiao, you know. Damn, this is really strange. Xiao Hua was flabbergasted when he heard this. He unconsciously looked at the plain flower in his hand, and a thoughtful expression appeared in his eyes. At this moment, a cold voice drifted into his ears like gossamer. The flowers are good, and the color is beautiful. However, if they all carry the poison of snakes and scorpions, I'm afraid they will all take one's life. Oh, Xiao Hua wasn't familiar with that voice, but he could tell that it was the voice of the woman from the Morong family who had just spoken. Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. After thinking for a moment, he cupped his hands and transmitted his voice. Fellow immortal, if you have anything to say, you can say it. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's voice was like a clay ox entering the sea. The woman from the Morong family simply ignored him. What does this person mean? Is it a warning? Xiao Hua thought to himself. But this shout doesn't know her at all. Moreover, she seemed to be very familiar with Princess Baihua of the Cha New Country. There's no need for her to speak ill of Princess Baihua behind her back for this Xiao, right? Forget it. I'm afraid this person has other intentions. Xiao Hua really didn't understand the woman's thoughts. Looking at the source of the voice, he waved his hand and stored the white flower into his space. Pitiful Xiao Hua, although he was already so old, had dual cultivation with her, and had even been tormented by Fairy Hong Xia's jealousy. In the end, he still didn't understand women. This warning had nothing to do with whether Xiao Hua and the woman from the Morong family knew each other. It had nothing to do with whether the woman from the Morong family had feelings for Xiao Hua. It also had nothing to do with the relationship between the woman from the Morong family and Princess Baihua. It was only related to the natural rejection between the two beautiful women. As Xiao Hua pondered for a moment, the Scarlet Flame War Chariot had already disappeared from the auction hall. Clearly, Princess Baihua had already paid the primeval stones. The entire auction hall returned to a deathly silence. At the same time, the Scarlet Flame War Chariot's brilliance disappeared. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the outline of the 3 continents, on the last ball of brilliance that landed on the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. From the previous arrangement of Zhaixing Lu, this last precious item should be related to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. It could be a demonic beast, or something obtained from the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. But what was this thing? To be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Dragon Bones and the Scarlet Flame War Chariot. What kind of demonic beast could it be? Of course, in the Thousand Demons sacred realm, there were countless demonic beasts that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Dragon Bones and the Scarlet Flame War Chariot. However, there weren't many demonic beasts that could bring the Zhaixing Lu of the hidden immortal continent to bid. Thinking about the demonic beasts that the Bright Moon Palace had previously bid for, many people already had a plan in their hearts. Fellow immortals, Yu Linfeng looked at the entire Bright Moon Palace and said, "At this moment, this is the last item that my Zhaixing Lu will bid for today. Of course, I believe that fellow immortals already know from the outline of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm that this is a demonic beast. That's right, I will officially tell everyone that this is a demonic beast, not a demon. However, this demonic beast is different from the ordinary demonic beasts in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. As for what's different, we'll talk about it after fellow immortals take a look." "Fellow immortal Yu," a cultivator anxiously said, "could it be that this demonic beast can only be bid for by the distinguished guests upstairs?" Yu Linfeng nodded and said, "That's right. In the end, these two rare items can only be bid for by the distinguished guests upstairs." Sigh. That person wanted to say something, but thinking about the hundreds of thousands of top-grade primordial stones, he immediately shut his mouth. Under everyone's gaze, Yu Linfeng pulled the ball of light in front of him. When the light dissipated, everyone was stunned again. This was because in the air, a crystal that was several feet in size appeared out of thin air. Inside the crystal, there was a white horse that was 3 feet in size. Aside from its snow-white body, there was nothing special about this white horse. Although its white mane that looked like it was fluttering in the wind was extremely vivid inside the crystal, it was just a little lifelike. No one could see what was special about this thing. "Fellow immortal Yu, you're not mistaken, right?" Someone anxiously said downstairs. "Isn't this just an ordinary white horse? What's so strange about it?" "That's right. If it was a white dragon horse, there would be dragon patterns in its eyes and a faint golden light around its body. But this white horse's eyes are pure, and there's not a trace of golden light around its body. It doesn't have the bloodline of a dragon. That's not right, that's not right. Look at the white horse's forehead. It seems there's a bulge. It's somewhat similar to a dragon's horn." "Io, that's right, that's right." Around the auction hall, the people downstairs were making guesses one after another. On the contrary, the VIP guests on the 3rd floor who were qualified to bid were now silent. Xiaohua pondered a little and understood that these people must have gotten the news. At the very least, they must have come to Zhaixing Lu to find out what kind of demonic beast this last item was from Zhuqing. That's why they didn't ask about it. This demonic beast is very strange. After everyone guessed for a long time, Yu Linfeng finally said, "It's not as simple as you think. Little friend Yu," the voice from before was silent for a long time before it spoke again. "It's getting late. We still have other matters to attend to. If it's possible, it's better for us to bid earlier." Yes, senior." Yu Linfeng didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly bowed and said, "This one will explain to the fellow immortal downstairs and immediately make a bid." This auction night was indeed long. Xiaohua stood in front of the window with his hands behind his back, looking down at the entire auction hall. Xiaohua had been in the hidden immortal continent for a long time, but in reality, he had always mingled with the people of the secular world. He didn't understand the entire hidden immortal continent, or it could be said that he didn't have the opportunity to come into contact with the people who cultivated on the hidden immortal continent. That Xing Chun, that Imo Jianli, they were considered experts in Xiao Jian's eyes, but in the hidden immortal continent, they were only nobodies. Only tonight, in this auction, the door to the cultivators of the hidden immortal continent gradually opened to Xiaohua. And Xiaohua also had a rough understanding of the entire hidden immortal continent through Fujiwen. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, do you recognize this demonic beast?" Fujiwen stood at the side and asked in a low voice. "No matter how I look at it, I don't understand. What's the difference between this and an ordinary white horse?" "Young Master Fu, this one also doesn't recognize it," Xiaohua answered honestly. "And this one also doesn't have any interest in it." Oh, right, young Master Fu, this demonic beast. What's the difference between it and a demon? Today's auction has so many demonic beast eggs. Does the 1,000 demonic sacred land not care about it? I'll let fellow Taoist Xiao know. Fu Jiwen said with a smile. My hidden immortal continent has a population of 1,000,000,000,000, but not everyone can cultivate. The majority of the people on hidden immortal continent are secular people. And the situation of the 1,000 demonic sacred land is the same as my hidden immortal continent. Their demonic beasts are more numerous than the population of my hidden immortal continent. The number of demonic beasts that can cultivate is also very small. And these are demons. AI, why didn't this one think of it? Xiao Hua patted his own forehead and said with a bitter smile. Actually, it's that simple. When cultivators stand out, demons will naturally stand out from demonic beasts. Actually, it's not as simple as fellow Taoist thinks. Of course, Fu Jiwen didn't know that Xiao Hua came from Xiaoyu continent. That place only has spirit beasts and demonic cultivators. There are no demons. Therefore, it's not very likely that Xiao Hua would know what a real demon is. However, he still explained, the 1,000 demonic sacred land is different from my hidden immortal continent. Their cultivation relies more on their innate talent. In other words, those who can cultivate to an extremely high realm all rely on their own bloodline and inheritance. Ordinary demonic beasts naturally can't cultivate. They can only rely on their instincts to survive and become the food of other demonic beasts. And some demonic beasts that have the opportunity to cultivate can also become demons. However, their achievements are extremely limited. While speaking, Fu Jiwen pointed at the white horse and said, for example, this white horse is an extremely ordinary demonic beast. If it's in my hidden immortal continent, it can only be a domestic animal, a meat horse waiting to be slaughtered. At most, it can only be a mount. But this white horse in front of us clearly has some abnormality in its bloodline. It can be distinguished from an ordinary white horse. It's even rarer than ordinary demonic beasts. That, fellow Taoist Xiao, do you understand? Chapter 3295. Although Xiao Hua is star-picking Towers VIP, in Fu Jiwen's eyes, the primeval stones in Xiao Hua's bag are far more important than Xiao Hua's cultivation. Therefore, Fu Jiwen still treats Xiao Hua as a fellow Taoist. Even though Xiao Hua was a bit strange when the dragon bone appeared, Xiao Hua's performance was too shocking. He actually didn't make any movement to resist. This made Fu Jiwen have a misconception that Xiao Hua has a protective magic treasure or his innate bloodline is different from others. Therefore, he has always treated Xiao Hua as a fellow Taoist who he can talk to freely. Xiao Hua smiled and touched his nose. Speaking of bloodline power, he knows a lot more than Fu Jiwen. Therefore, he said, I naturally understand demon beast cultivation is different from my hidden immortal continent's human cultivation. It completely relies on the inheritance of memories, the power of the flesh body's bloodline. As long as you are born well, you can cultivate well. This is a typical competition of fathers. Competition of fathers? Fu Jiwen, slightly dazed, then immediately laughed out loud. Fellow Taoist Xiao is really interesting. That's right, demon beasts compete with their fathers. Whoever's father or mother's bloodline is more powerful. That person is more powerful. Xiao Hua looked at the crystal floating in the air. The white horse in the crystal closed its eyes. Its long horse face was somewhat convulsing. Obviously, the white horse was in a lot of pain before it was sealed. Suddenly, a kind of indescribable feeling emerged from Xiao Hua's heart. Damn, it seems when I was rescued by Xiao Jian, it should also be like this, right? At this moment, Fu Jiwen pointed at the white horse and said, as fellow Taoist Xiao said, this white horse's bidding is placed at the end of the auction. If it's not its father who is more powerful, then its mother who is more powerful. Then who are its parents? Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen very naturally had this question in their hearts. Not giving them much time to think, Yulin Feng carefully put away his folding fan. The smile on his face disappeared, and he cupped his hands, seniors, fellow Taoists, this horse is called Heavenly Horse. What? Heavenly Horse? Just as Yu Linfeng's words fell, an impatient cultivator immediately said, "Is this the Heavenly Horse of the Immortal Palace? How could the Heavenly Horse of the Immortal Palace be banished to my hidden immortal continent? The Immortal Palace strictly forbids the loss of Pegasus. Who dares to bid for Pegasus?" This person's words seemed to represent everyone's doubts, arousing everyone's curiosity. Everyone stared at Yu Linfeng, waiting for his answer. Yu Linfeng smiled faintly. "Although my Zhaixing Lu has some power, it can't compare to the Immortal Palace. How can my Zhaixing Lu bid for a Pegasus that the Immortal Palace has banned? This horse is called the Pegasus, but it is not the Pegasus of the Immortal Palace. My fellow immortals, please listen carefully. When you go out, don't say that I bid for the Pegasus and provoke the Immortal Palace to send troops to hunt you down." Everyone burst into laughter. Some people even took the opportunity to shout, "Immortal friend Yu, since it's not the Heavenly Horse of the Immortal Palace, why is it called Heavenly Horse? Didn't they just want to have some disputes with the Immortal Palace? Maybe the Immortal Palace has sent troops, and Zhaixing Lu will become even more famous in the hidden immortal continent." It's not as you said, fellow immortal. Although my Zhaixing Lu can't compare to the Immortal Palace, we don't need to use their prestige to whitewash our face. Yu Linfeng smiled faintly and pointed at the white horse. This Pegasus has a pure bloodline. Its father's bloodline is the famous solitary wind chaser beast of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. Its mother's bloodline is even more mysterious. To be honest, I've never heard of it. Even my Zhaixing Lu's consecrator can only guess. Fellow Taoist Yu, why don't you tell us? Hearing Yu Linfeng's pause, several people hastily called out, "Ahem." A slightly dignified voice sounded from the third floor. "Little friend Yu, hurry up and bid. What's the use of saying all this?" Yu Linfeng was stunned. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly shut his mouth, as if someone had transmitted a message. After a moment, he said again, "As for the Pegasus Mother's tribe, my Zhaixing Lu is not particularly clear. We only know that this mother's tribe may not be within the 3 continents. In short, this Pegasus deserves its name." Immortal friend Yu, your words. Some people were dissatisfied, but Yu Linfeng knew that he couldn't say more. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "This Pegasus has the same starting price as the Scarlet Flame War Chariot, 50,000 supreme-grade primordial stones. I bid 60,000. Before Yu Linfeng could say the number of primordial stones for each bid, someone immediately bid. It didn't matter if this person bid, but everyone else bid. It seemed that other than Xiao Hua, all the guests on the 3rd floor had bid. Xiao Hua was a bit puzzled and whispered, "Young Master Fu, I don't understand. The Scarlet Flame War Chariot just now, from my Dao Sect's point of view, is a flying Dharma artifact with offensive capabilities. It should be worth hundreds of thousands of supreme-grade primordial stones. But a Pegasus, even if it's really a Pegasus from the Immortal Palace, it shouldn't be worth so many primordial stones, right?" Fu Jiwen smiled and said, "I'm not a person like Immortal Friend Xiao, so I don't know what these seniors are thinking. But if you think about it carefully, a Pegasus has such a bloodline that even involves the beyond heaven. If you get a Pegasus, you might be able to obtain information about the beyond heaven, which might be beneficial for your ascension. Moreover, a real Pegasus is the exclusive property of the Immortal Palace. It's something that you can't get no matter how many primordial stones you have. Now, this Pegasus doesn't seem to be inferior to the Pegasus from the Immortal Palace. If you use it as a mount, wouldn't it be even more imposing than the Scarlet Flame War Chariot? If Immortal Friend Xiao has extra primordial stones, you might as well take it out to bid. This thing, TSK, what do you go with it? People will know it's you before you even show up. You'll have a lot of face. Of course, if Immortal Friend Xiao rides it, you have to be careful not to be targeted by others." Xiao Hua finally understood that Fu Jiwen was treating him as a country bumpkin who hadn't seen the world. Moreover, he said it so obviously, he was treating him as someone close to him. He couldn't help but laugh. I do have some primordial stones, but I'm used to flying. Who would ride a horse? At the very least, I'll get a phoenix to ride. Ride a phoenix? TSK, TSK. Immortal friend Zhao's tone is really big. When you ride it one day, let me broaden my horizons. Fu Jiwen curled his lips and smiled. He was very disdainful. Damn it, I have really ridden a phoenix before. Moreover, I've changed many positions. Xiaohua was secretly proud. 200,000 top-grade primordial stones. This voice seemed to belong to young Master Duanmu. However, when he thought about how he haggled over 3 top-grade primordial stones, Xiaohua really doubted whether he had 200,000 top-grade primordial stones. Sure enough, that leaky voice laughed coldly. Kid from the Duanmu family, Windy Mo, cut off your tongue. 200,000 top-grade primordial stones. Can you take it out now? Immortal friend, whether I have 200,000 primordial stones or not is my business. Whether I bid or not is your business. There's no reason for you to doubt my primordial stones. Why don't you bid 1 top-grade primordial stone? Little brat, I bid 210,000 top-grade primordial stones. Fellow immortal friends, I have just received everyone's support and obtained the Scarlet Flame War Chariot. I will not participate in this heavenly horse. Princess Baihua's somewhat weak voice sounded again. It was very clear to everyone who heard it. Duanmu Qing, the girl from the Murong family, opened her mouth and called out young Master Duanmu's name without any trace of politeness. You already have the golden chariot and dragon horse. Why are you bidding for the heavenly horse? Miss Murong, aren't you slapping this little brother's face? Duanmu Qing clearly did not dare to call out the name of the girl from the Murong family. She said with some hidden bitterness, I haven't been able to find a suitable flying beast for my golden chariot. That dragon horse was only temporarily borrowed from someone else. This heavenly horse is my main purpose today, and you already have a flying rock on your lily chariot. What's the use of this white horse? I like it. Miss Murong chuckled and said, Furthermore, I have always wanted to ride the heavenly horse to every corner of the hidden immortal continent. I can't get the heavenly horse from the immortal palace. Isn't this heavenly horse what I want? What do you little brats know? I want this heavenly horse. 250,000 top-grade primordial stones. The voice that was the first to bid spoke again. Marshal Ao, I know that you are representing the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace today. If you let me have this item, I will owe the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace a favor. You? Who are you? The voice from the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace that had always been as steady as a mountain was now somewhat surprised. You didn't even say your name. How can I agree? All right, in that case, little brother Zhu, I will offend you. That voice raised his voice, and then a violent yellow wind was born from that place. It was like thousands of flying swords streaking across the sky, splitting the entire night sky. Seeing that the night sky illusion of the bright moon palace was about to be destroyed, Zhu Qing's voice sounded faintly. Alas, seniors, you are making things difficult for me. Soon after, a shooting star was seen emerging from a corner, flying against the yellow wind. Sizzle. The violent sound of water falling into a pot of oil was heard. The yellow wind gradually stopped, but the entire night sky was boiling. All of the night sky was shaved off, revealing several white jade carved towers. Now that the origin array on the 3rd floor has been removed, if seniors want to bid face-to-face, you can go to the pavilions. As Zhu Qing spoke, his figure appeared in front of the crystal of the heavenly horse. Faint ripples appeared under his feet, clearly separating the people on the 3rd floor from the people who had fallen down. Who are you, fellow immortal? Now that you can show your true appearance, I really want to know. Who dares to order my Eastern Sea Dragon Palace around? A humanoid man with a dragon head and a golden crown on his head and golden armor on his body appeared on a pavilion. He looked at the opposite side and said faintly, This man was more than 10 feet tall. On the ferocious dragon head, his arrogant eyebrows were thick and black. A pair of eyes that were half a size larger than an ordinary person's flashed with a trace of fierceness. Obviously, this was Marshal Ao of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. Chapter 3296. The leaky voice finally came from building. A short and thin old man dressed in an earthen yellow robe walked out of the light. I'm Archean Enrich's G-Phone. People call me Old Demon G-Phone. Old Demon G-Phone? Ao Shui frowned and sized up the old man. The old man's head was very small. His eyes were wrinkled and shiny. Beside his slightly protruding mouth, there were 2 long and hard beards. If he was not wrong, he should be a rat spirit. If the Eastern Sea Patrol has not heard of my name, I have nothing to say. After all, I'm only slightly famous in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. Old Demon G-Phone was not surprised by Ao Shui's sizing up. He smiled and said, "After all, in this star-picking tower, one has to rely on primeval stones to speak. Since G-Phone knows that you are not famous, why should my Eastern Sea Dragon Palace give in?" Ao Shui said coldly. "One has to rely on strength to speak." "Strength?" Old Demon G-Phone smiled. "If strength is useful, why do we need primeval stones? Junior will raise the price by 251,000 supreme-grade primeval stones. Do the 2 seniors want to raise the price?" On the balcony far away, Duan Muqing's figure appeared. She cupped her hands at the 2 and said respectfully, "Little brat." Old Demon G-Phone could not help but scold. "Can't you see that I am negotiating with the Eastern Sea Patrol? What does it have to do with you? You are really holding down the gourd and raising the ladle." Duan Muqing was very unhappy. She said coldly, "Senior, if you are talking to me and calling me that, I won't dare to argue with you. After all, you are old. Even if you don't respect me, I can't do anything about it. But now that we are bidding, I am representing my Duanmu family. If you call me a little brat, aren't you scolding my entire Duanmu family?" Oomph. Old Demon G-Phone was slightly stunned. Clearly, he did not expect Duan Muqing to refute. He snorted and said, "Do you think that you can represent the Duanmu family because you're just a little girl from the Murong family? Even if I kill you, Duanmu Tianji will not blame me." Old Demon G-Phone, the young mistress of the Murong family, rebuked. "Are you joking with me? He is the only one from the Duanmu family here, and he can represent the Duanmu family on that day. Since I'm the only one in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, does that mean I can represent the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm?" Old Monster G-Phone looked at Duan Muqing with disdain and said, "This heavenly horse is something this old man must obtain. Its bloodline is very beneficial to this old man's cultivation. You're not my opponent. I will deal with you after I discuss with the East Sea Dragon Palace." Old Monster G-Phone, the East Sea Dragon Palace, is also very interested in the bloodline of the Pegasus. "We will never give up," Ao Shui immediately said before Old Monster G-Phone could finish a sentence. Old Monster G-Phone was not surprised by Ao Shui's determination and said with a smile, "Inspector, actually, with your East Sea Dragon Clan's bloodline, don't you think that the Heavenly Horse's bloodline is a little too thin?" Ao Shui frowned and asked, "Whether it's weak or not, we can only know after using it. Who can say for sure now? What if this old man tells you a brighter path?" Old Monster G-Phone seemed to have a card up his sleeve as he spoke. "Oh, brighter?" Ao Shui's bulging dragon eyes revealed a trace of light. "Tell me first." How can it be that simple? If the inspector agrees to this old man's conditions, this old man will naturally say it. Furthermore, this old man will also lend you a hand. This. Ao Shui pondered for a moment and looked at the heavenly horse in the crystal. He nodded and said, "All right, this old man agrees." "Great." Old Monster G-Phone was overjoyed and hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Sure enough, after a few words, Ao Shui's face revealed a look of surprise. He actually forgot to send a voice transmission and said anxiously, "Is this true? How can this old man lie to you?" Old Monster G-Phone said proudly, "This old man still needs to help you from the side." Ao Shui nodded, and a fierce look flashed on his dragon head. "This inspector will listen to you and not bid for this heavenly horse with you. However, if you're lying, don't blame my East Sea Dragon Palace for being ruthless." Yes, Inspector, please don't worry. This old man is a well-known figure in Archean enrich. How can I deceive the East Sea Dragon Palace? This old man doesn't want to be hunted down by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Old monster Ji Feng was overjoyed. The East Sea Dragon Palace was the strongest in this auction. Old monster Ji Feng believed that he could resist Ao Shui, but the primordial stones in his pouch could not compare to Ao Shui's. With Ao Shui's withdrawal, old monster Ji Feng was almost 90% confident. Yes, Ao Shui snorted faintly and retreated to the balcony, disappearing from sight. It was considered that he was no longer bidding. Morong family's little girl. Old monster Ji Feng spoke again. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, Zhu Qing coughed twice from afar and said, "Senior, isn't this too obvious? You're making things difficult for me." Yes, old monster Ji Feng's actions were clearly not in line with Zhai Xinglu's interests. It was also prohibited by the Bright Moon Palace. As the saying goes, although a big shop bullies its customers, a big customer also bullies the shop. Old monster Ji Feng was relying on his own strength to blatantly violate the Bright Moon Palace's prohibition. Wasn't this blatantly bullying Zhai Xinglu? However, there was another saying that was right. Amicability breeds wealth. Zhu Qing was clear that Zhai Xinglu also had a few high officials in charge. Not to mention dealing with old monster Ji Feng, even dealing with the EC Dragon Palace would not be a problem. However, the problem was that as long as they shed all pretense of cordiality, many things would have to be resolved with strength. This caused a lot of conflicts. Although old monster Ji Feng had violated the ban, he had already called the price to a relatively high level, which could be considered as giving Zhu Qing some leeway. It was not at the end of the line, so Zhu Qing only spoke out to remind him and did not use the consecrations. Since that's the case, this old man does not dare to make things difficult for young friend Zhu. I bid 270,000 supreme grade primordial stones. Old monster Ji Feng's rat eyes glanced at the Bright Moon Palace and laughed loudly. I bid 280,000 supreme grade primordial stones. Young Master Duanmu's face was very calm and did not show any signs of movement. That young Miss Morong also laughed, but still did not reveal her true feelings. This servant bids 290,000 supreme grade primordial stones. It seemed that the three of them were not willing to give up. In just a moment, the primordial stones had increased to 400,000. Sigh, young friend Zhu, if this continues, there will be no end. Old monster Ji Feng laughed bitterly. This old man really has other things to do. I really cannot afford to waste time here. This old man can also see that these two young friends are determined to get this item, but there is no meaning in bidding with primordial stones. Moreover, if the two young friends from the aristocratic families suddenly bid 1,000,000 supreme grade primordial stones, to be honest, this old man also cannot afford it. If senior cannot afford it, you can withdraw. Young Master Duanmu smiled faintly. This old man can withdraw. Old monster Ji Feng's tone was also indifferent. But this item involves this old man's cultivation. This old man cannot let it go. If you do not use this old man's method to bid for this item, if this old man does not live well, others should not think about living well. Even if there is someone who can be protected by Zhai Xinglu, this old man does not believe that he will not walk on the hidden immortal continent in this lifetime. Senior. Zhu Qing's face turned cold as he said, "Spirit fruits can be eaten carelessly, spirit wine can be drunk carelessly, but words cannot be spoken carelessly. What is the meaning of senior saying all this here? Could it be that you are threatening the other immortal friends?" No. Old monster Ji Feng stretched his waist and laughed. "This old man is just casually complaining, that's all." "That's good," Zhu Qing said faintly. "Those who come to my Zhai Xinglu are this Zhu's honored guests. This Zhu does not wish for any unpleasant things to happen. Moreover, this Zhu's patience is also a bit. I do not wish to be forced. Young friend Zhu, this old man will raise the bidding price of this Pegasus to 500,000 supreme-grade primordial stones. Old monster Ji Feng laughed. Of course, this is already the limit that this old man can take out. This one, not waiting for old monster Ji Feng to finish, young master Duanmu opened his mouth again. Oomph. Old monster Ji Feng snorted coldly. Why is the Duanmu family's upbringing so bad? Can't you see that this old man has not finished speaking? Old monster Ji Feng, young master Duanmu, was also unhappy. This one respects you as a senior and has always been patient. Don't think that just because you have some reputation in the thousand-demon sacred realm, you can be arrogant in my hidden immortal continent. Young master Duanmu. Young Miss Murong spoke. Who doesn't know how to raise the price? Why not be a little patient? This is Zhai Xing Lu's auction. It will definitely be fair for us. Why be anxious? Young Miss Murong was patient while the other was anxious. Naturally, she also expressed her displeasure. However, she was much more polite than young Master Duanmu, causing old monster Ji Feng to roll his eyes in confusion and become vigilant in his heart. Forget it. Old monster Ji Feng, you can speak. Young Master Duanmu was clearly somewhat afraid of young Miss Murong as he sighed. Old monster Ji Feng ignored him and looked at Zhu Qing. Young friend Zhu, this Pegasus race will be sold for 500,000 supreme-grade primordial stones. Today, it could be considered as not letting your Zhai Xing Lu down, right? Zhu Qing's eyes were bright as he looked at old monster Ji Feng and said, Senior, if you have something to say, please say it. There's no need to beat around the bush. This old man only wants to say. Old monster Ji Feng chuckled and said, Your Zhai Xing Lu has sold this Pegasus race for others to watch, or for others to use it. Zhu Qing's expression did not change as he said with a smile, whether it's to watch or to use it, it has nothing to do with Zhai Xing Lu. That's what the Pegasus owner wants. But if one does not have the ability to subdue the Pegasus, they can only seal it in the crystal. Or if the crystal seal is opened, the Pegasus will escape and return to your Zhai Xing Lu to bid again. My Zhai Xing Lu will not do such a boring thing. Zhu Qing shook his head and replied. Young Miss Murong smiled and said, Senior Ji Feng, what you mean is we will all use 500,000 supreme-grade primordial stones as the base price. Whoever has the ability to subdue the Pegasus can bid for it. Chapter 3297. Haha, the girl from the Murong family is smart. That's exactly what I meant. Old demon Ji Feng laughed loudly. If we can subdue it, who will it belong to? Young Master Duanmu laughed coldly. Naturally, it will belong to young Master Duanmu or young Lady Murong. It has nothing to do with me. Old demon Ji Feng answered cleanly. All right, we'll do as you say. Young Master Duanmu did not hesitate and immediately agreed. It was obvious that he was prepared to subdue the Pegasus. Old demon Ji Feng looked in the direction of the Murong family and asked indifferently, What about the girl from the Murong family? How about it? Senior Ji Feng, the eldest young lady from the Murong family, did not say anything. Instead, Zhu Qing asked, It would be best if one of you can subdue the Pegasus. But if no one can subdue it, who will it belong to? Naturally, it will belong to young Master Duanmu or young Lady Murong. It has nothing to do with me. Old demon Ji Feng looked like he had the confidence to capture it. What if the Pegasus is released and my Zhai Xing Lu's origin array and consecrators are unable to subdue it? Zhu Qing asked again. Oh, this time, even Xiao Hua, who was listening at the side, felt his heart skip a beat. He thought to himself, it seems that old demon Ji Feng was right. Zhai Xing Lu is hiding something. Don't worry, little friend Zhu. Old demon Ji Feng smiled. Since this idea was thought of by me, the 500,000 supreme-grade origin stones will naturally be paid by me. All right. Zhu Qing heard old demon Ji Feng's words and took responsibility for all the accidents. Naturally, he did not have any objections and nodded. Fellow immortals. Old demon Ji Feng raised his head and said loudly, Please, everyone, watch carefully. If anything happens, this old man's supreme-grade origin stones will fly with the Pegasus. Ha! You old demon, you're so troublesome. You want to take advantage of my Zhai Xing Lu, yet you want us to help you. A slightly old voice sounded from the top of the bright moon palace. Many thanks, many thanks. Old monster Ji Feng cupped his hands towards the sky and laughed heartily. I didn't have enough confidence to subdue this heavenly horse. At this moment, the voice of the eldest daughter of the Murong family rang out. Then, a woman dressed in pink with a scarf covering her face walked out from the balcony. Beneath her feet was a cloud of lilies as she steadily stood in midair. However, since Senior Ji Feng is willing to take on the same risk, this servant can't not show her support. Good. Since that's the case, let's use our methods. Let's see who can lead this heavenly horse away. Old monster Ji Feng waved his hand, revealing a sharp little claw from within his loose robe. Right at this moment, another voice resounded. Xiao Hua, who hadn't spoken since the beginning, stepped out from the balcony. He took 2 steps in midair and said with a smile, I didn't expect this auction to be so lively. I wanted to wait until the end of the auction. Who knew that things would develop to such an extent? If I still don't come out, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to obtain this heavenly horse. Oh, everyone was surprised. Old monster Ji Feng blinked his small eyes and looked at Xiao Hua from head to toe. He sneered. Who the hell are you? How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? This one is not a green onion. This one is the Dao Sect's Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua wasn't angry and said indifferently, Moreover, I don't think I'm being arrogant. I'm only bidding for a heavenly horse. Especially, even if I fail, I won't lose half a piece of origin stone. Why wouldn't I participate? Xiao Hua's sudden appearance not only made old demon Ji Feng unhappy, but even young noble Duanmu narrowed his eyes. He closely stared at Xiao Hua and waited for old demon Ji Feng to ask before speaking. Xiao Hua, do you know what is meant by if you don't seek death, you won't die? Earlier, you went against me time and time again, and I endured it time and time again. I even sent you a visiting card, but I didn't expect that. At this moment, you really want to fight me to the death. Young Master Duanmu, what young Master Zhu said earlier was extremely good. Spirit fruits can be eaten indiscriminately. Spirit wine can be drunk indiscriminately. But words can't be spoken indiscriminately. I'm here to bid with origin stones, and have taken a fancy to this heavenly horse. Moreover, I'm also a VIP on the 3rd floor. Why can't I bid? Could it be that young master has already taken this heavenly horse as his exclusive property? Xiao Hua didn't care about young Master Duanmu's anger and only said indifferently. At first, he didn't want to participate in the bidding, but when he saw the pitiful state of the heavenly horse being sealed in the crystal, he sighed in his heart. He carefully looked at the heavenly horse, and the more he looked at it, the more he liked it. He didn't have any flying mounts, and bidding for this heavenly horse was just right for him to use as a means of transportation. Moreover, Xiao Hua, who was used to using the lightning escape technique, could only rely on the flying talisman to fly. How could he endure it? If he offended a certain expert, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. If this heavenly horse could fly very fast, it would definitely be the best method for him to escape. Therefore, he participated in the bidding at the last moment, and he also had the heart to win. Humph, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Although young Master Duanmu didn't say the thing at the end, it was obvious that he really didn't care about Xiao Hua. He still remembered the matter of the 3 origin stones clearly. Golden core cultivation method. What would he do with that thing? However, Xiao Hua indeed didn't seem to have any high cultivation, but that kind of calmness that was as steady as a mountain couldn't be underestimated, especially when Xiao Hua's words were reasonable. This was a bidding. If Xiao Hua had the qualifications, why couldn't he bid? Young Master Zhu. Duanmu Qing looked at Zhu Qing, who was watching from the side, and said indifferently, Does this Dao sect loose cultivator have the qualifications to bid for this heavenly horse? If young Master Zhu doesn't have the confidence, after he bids, young Master Zhu won't be able to receive any origin stones. Many thanks for young Master Duanmu's reminder. Zhu Qing's face didn't reveal any special expression as he said, "Every VIP who participated in the auction, my Zhaixing Lu has seen their small Qingquan bags. Although this immortal friend is a Dao sect loose cultivator, he is no exception. He can pay 500,000 top-grade origin stones. He, a broken-down Dao sect loose cultivator, can take out 500,000 top-grade origin stones. What's wrong with this world? Why do I feel that it's unreal?" Duanmu Qing really couldn't understand. Luckily, he was also from a prestigious family. Perhaps he had other thoughts in his heart, but his mouth and face didn't show any strange expression. Xiaohua smiled. "What? Are you looking down on my Dao sect? If I could take out 500,000 origin stones, will you be able to bid for this heavenly horse? Does young Master Duanmu dare to make a bet?" Young Master Duanmu said coldly, "If you dare to continue bidding with me, let's see who has more origin stones. I will definitely bet with you." Of course. Xiaohua took out his small Qingquan bag and said, "Let's compete now. Whoever has more origin stones will take the heavenly horse away." Of course I can. But does anyone else agree?" Young Master Duanmu didn't back down. Although he didn't take out his small Qingquan bag, he still replied. Hearing young Master Duanmu's reply, Xiaohua laughed in his heart. Just now, for 3 top-grade primordial stones and other things, young Master Duanmu wanted to express his goodwill. How could young Master Duanmu have 500,000 top-grade primordial stones on him? He would definitely buy it first, then leave the golden carriage and dragon horse here, and then make up for the rest of the primordial stones. Thus, Xiaohua said loudly, "How about this? Let's compete in origin stones. Whoever has less origin stones will withdraw from the bidding for the heavenly horse. How about that?" Young Master Duanmu's suppressed anger finally exploded. His expression changed, and he shouted loudly, "Xiaohua, did you eat a leopard's guts? Although I don't want to cause trouble, but you insist on finding trouble with me. Don't blame me for being impolite." Seeing young Master Duanmu's stern voice, Xiaohua knew that his guess was not wrong. His cultivation had not recovered. Why would he take the initiative to find trouble with him? Xiaohua smiled and said, "Look at what young Master Duanmu said. I met young Master Duanmu before entering Zhaixing Lu. It can be considered fate. Didn't we appreciate each other when we were bidding just now? Why did young Master Duanmu lose his composure when I participate in the bidding for the heavenly horse? Even if young Master Duanmu is determined to win, there are still others beside you. Did I hinder young Master Duanmu by participating?" Hearing Xiaohua mention others, young Master Duanmu's heart trembled. That old demon Zhifeng of the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm was the first to question Xiaohua. He refuted Xiaohua for a long time and didn't want him to participate. However, that old demon Zhifeng didn't say a word. It was really strange. Since he didn't speak, there was no need for him to block anything for old demon Zhifeng. "All right," young Master Duanmu casually said and looked at old demon Zhifeng. However, he, who had an unhappy face just now, was now quietly standing there. He didn't even look at Xiaohua. His pair of rat eyes fell on the heavenly horse in the crystal, as if the heavenly horse was about to fly out. Is there something strange about the heavenly horse? Young Master Duanmu hurriedly looked at the crystal. However, the heavenly horse in the crystal was the same as before. There was no change at all. What young Master Duanmu didn't know was that on another balcony, young Miss Murong was indeed staring at Xiaohua with her beautiful eyes. Her brows were slightly knitted, and no one knew what she was thinking. There was indeed something strange about this. However, the strange thing wasn't the heavenly horse, but Xiaohua. Young Miss Murong could clearly see that old Demon Zhifeng was originally looking at Xiaohua unhappily. However, when his gaze fell on Xiaohua, he couldn't move. It was as if Xiaohua was a monster that was even more female than a female mouse. He deeply attracted old demon Zhifeng's rat eyes. However, soon after, an indescribable expression flashed through old demon Zhifeng's eyes. He immediately looked at the heavenly horse and no longer paid attention to Xiaohua. Did he discover something? This filled young Miss Murong's heart with curiosity. He was only a loose cultivator from a broken Taoist sect. What did he have that was worthy of the attention of an old demon from the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm? Although she was curious, young Miss Murong still smiled and said, "Young Master Duanmu, this suggestion was made by Senior Jifeng. Why don't you ask him first? What's the point of agreeing for no reason? Don't you think so, Senior Jifeng?" Chapter 3298. I don't mind. Old monster, Ji Feng shifted his gaze away from the Pegasus and looked thoughtfully at the veiled Miss Muro. He lightly nodded. As long as you have the qualifications to bid and believe that you can subdue this Pegasus, you can naturally participate. Old monster Ji Feng's tone was so light that Duanmu Gongzi didn't know what to do. Perhaps I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Duanmu Gongzi immediately blushed with shame at his own lack of calm. Unfortunately, he wasn't a roundworm in old monster Ji Feng's stomach. How could he know that old monster Ji Feng's heart was currently in turmoil? Old monster Ji Feng's original body was a spirit mouse. Due to a fortuitous encounter, he was able to see through the mysteries of the heavens and stepped into the ranks of demons from an ignorant demonic beast. In the hundreds or even thousands of years of cultivation, he had encountered countless dangers. These dangers were admittedly the tribulations on the path of cultivation, but they also allowed him to cultivate an extremely sharp sense. In addition to the spirit mouse's innate intelligence, it allowed him to have the instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. This instinct had saved his life more than once. Today, the moment old monster Ji Feng saw Xiaohua, he did not pay attention to him at all. He felt that Xiaohua was merely a little fellow with around the first grade of elemental energy. However, when he finished speaking and was about to look at Duanmu Qing, who had spoken, and ponder on how to benefit from the conflict between Duanmu Qing and Xiaohua that had yet to be made clear, a slight sense of vigilance arose in his heart. This caused him to have no choice but to look at Xiaohua again. This time, a fear that came from the bottom of his heart when facing a high-level demon actually appeared in his heart. Although this fear disappeared in a flash. Even old monster Ji Feng himself felt that it was inexplicable. He simply couldn't capture it. However, this feeling caused old monster Ji Feng's heart tremble. Following which, old monster Ji Feng unhesitatingly used 1,000 Goblin Saint Realm Spirit Mouse's secret technique. However, what made old monster Ji Feng surprised was that he couldn't sense any 1,000 Goblin Saint Realm aura from Xiaohua's body. He couldn't even find any traces of a demon. What Xiaohua displayed was the cultivation of a human from the Dao sect. It was the same as what he saw. Therefore, old monster Ji Feng used the opportunity to observe the Pegasus and the crystal to carefully organize his thoughts. He was pondering what kind of thing Xiaohua was. He didn't doubt his own extraordinary acuity, nor did he doubt his own secret technique. Since there was a contradiction between the two conclusions, this contradiction must lie with Xiaohua. Perhaps Xiaohua had the relics of a high-level demon of the Thousand Demon Saint Realm, or perhaps Xiaohua had a high-level demon pet. This kind of powerful backing gave Xiaohua the courage to come and bid. As for the possibility that Xiaohua was a demon, it only flashed through old monster Ji Feng's mind for a moment before disappearing. This was because old monster Ji Feng's secret technique had never failed. No matter how high level a demon he faced, no matter what kind of aura concealing secret technique this demon cultivated. This was because this was old monster Ji Feng's innate ability as a spirit mouse. In particular, if Xiaohua was a demon, it was impossible for him to have the cultivation of Taoism. Old monster Ji Feng smelled the aura of true essence from Xiaohua's meridians. How could a demon have meridians? How could Xiaohua know that old monster Ji Feng had seen through him so much? Seeing that the most troublesome old monster Ji Feng didn't even say a second word in agreement, Xiaohua also stared blankly. Then he smiled and said, "Since it's like this shall, thanks, Senior." Amen. Old monster Zhifeng nodded. However, he shouted towards the surroundings again, "The four of us are preparing to use our own methods to subdue this Pegasus. If any immortal friends still have ideas, please come out now. Otherwise, when we begin to subdue it, you can no longer make a move." After old monster Zhifeng finished speaking, no one answered for a while. Old monster Zhifeng said to Zhu Qing, "Little friend Zhu, you also saw it. Only the four of us are preparing to subdue this Pegasus. Why don't you quickly release this Pegasus?" Wait, just as Zhu Qing was about to speak, the eldest miss of the Murong family opened her mouth. Senior Zhifeng, "Little girl, what's wrong now?" Old monster Zhifeng was so angry that his nose almost became crooked. He said somewhat impatiently. The eldest miss of the Murong family smiled and said, "This servant originally planned to return to my family's seniors to tame this Pegasus after buying this Pegasus. Just now, because young Master Duanmu participated in the bidding, this servant mustered up the courage to accompany young Master Duanmu. Now that immortal friend Xiao is participating in the bidding, I reckon that he also has a method to tame this Pegasus. Then this servant will not blindly meddle in this, so as to avoid making a fool of myself." Oh, not only was old monster Zhifeng surprised, his small mouse eyes slightly flashed. Even young Master Duanmu frowned. Although the eldest miss of the Murong family spoke courteously, everyone present understood that this eldest miss of the Murong family was giving face to Xiaohua. Strange? This Murong Songyun has always had her eyes above her head. When did she know this little tramp from the Dao sect? Young Master Duanmu was truly puzzled. Actually, not only Duanmu Qing, even Xiaohua himself was greatly stunned. He rubbed his nose and said with a smile, "Miss Murong, we do not know each other. There is no need to be so courteous. It has nothing to do with this." Murong Songyun said with a smile, "This servant is a woman. I cannot compare to the divine abilities of men like you. If I continue to be angry with this beast, wouldn't I lose my Confucian upbringing? This servant will not make a fool of herself. You all use your divine abilities to tame this Pegasus." After speaking, without waiting for anyone to speak, she turned around and disappeared into the pavilion. Old monster Zhifeng naturally did not care if Murong Songyun participated in the bidding or not. He cautiously glanced at Xiaohua, turned his head, and said to the distant Zhu Qing, "Little friend Zhu, you can release this Pegasus now." Zhu Qing glanced at the three people and could not help but remind them, "Three immortal friends, this Pegasus speed is definitely much faster than what you all think. Moreover, its temper is extremely violent. It is said that it was only by luck that we were able to capture it after being surrounded by many experts. As for others, they were only able to sell it to my Zhaixing Lu for bidding when they were unable to tame it. Why don't the three immortal friends work together to surround this Pegasus and then do the other things?" All right, Duanmu Qing naturally trusted Zhu Qing's words. She glanced at Xiaohua and old monster Zhifeng's position and flew up a bit to face the two of them. She surrounded the crystal that sealed the Pegasus in the middle. Xiaohua, who was opposite Duanmu Qing, did not mind. After all, the space in the Bright Moon Palace was not too big. Moreover, the three of them surrounded the Pegasus. No matter how fast the Pegasus was, it might not be faster than his ethereal steps. Moreover, his current magic power was not enough to activate the lightning evasion. However, he could activate the wind evasion for a moment. As long as he had the opportunity to get close to the Pegasus, wouldn't he be able to use the dragon elephant force in his arms to tame this Pegasus? Looking at old monster Zhifeng, who was standing there without moving, he was even more confident than Xiaohua. Seeing this, Zhu Qing naturally could not say anything else. He raised his head and looked at the night sky above the Bright Moon Palace. He extended his hand and took out a thumb-sized rhombus-shaped crystal. That crystal seemed to be of the same origin as the crystal that sealed the Pegasus. Just as he took it out, it immediately emitted a faint radiance. That radiance swept across the surface of the rhombus-shaped crystal and refracted onto the large crystal. A multicolored light suddenly flashed from the large crystal. Zhu Qing waved his hand, and the small rhombus-shaped crystal landed in midair. Then, Zhu Qing opened his mouth, and a breath of vital energy landed on the crystal. Pum! A crisp sound rang out, and the entire small crystal immediately turned into 9 petals. It was like a transparent chrysanthemum blossoming in midair. Zhu Qing extended his hand again and extended his middle finger. He opened his mouth, and a ray of sword aura shot out. Then he flicked his middle finger, and a bunch of blood essence flew out from his middle finger and landed on the 9 flower-like crystals. Go! Following Zhu Qing's final flick of his sleeve, numerous righteous chi rushed out and carried the 9 small crystals to 9 spots on the large crystal. But the places where the 9 small crystals landed, ripples immediately appeared on the large crystal. At the places where the ripples collided, even more fine lines appeared on the surface of the entire crystal. In just a moment, the entire surface of the crystal was completely covered by the ripples and started to rapidly tremble. Just like boiling water, the crystals became smaller and smaller under the ripples. The Pegasus' snow-white back and its frosty ponytail were revealed. Senior Zhifeng, young Master Duanmu, fellow immortal Xiao. Seeing the Pegasus appear, Zhu Qing's face showed caution. He could not help but remind them again. The Pegasus is about to be released. All of you, be careful. Don't worry. I have woken up. Duanmu Qing smiled proudly. She reached into her bosom and took out a dazzling golden object. She glanced at old monster Zhifeng and said, Senior Zhifeng, who will make a move first? Should we make a move now or wait until the Pegasus is completely free? Oh my, this is your Duanmu family's dragon subduing lock. Old monster Zhifeng glanced at it and said somewhat exaggeratedly, It seems like those 4 dragon horses were subdued by this dragon subduing lock. You have prepared extremely well. Hee, Senior Zhifeng, this kid does not have your cultivation. If I did not have any imperial equipment on me, how would I dare to come down and subdue the Pegasus? Duanmu Qing replied with a smile. At the same time, she looked at Xiaohua. Old monster Zhifeng looked at the Pegasus' neck that was already revealed and said, As long as the Pegasus is able to wake up, there is no need to wait for the crystals to disappear. The 3 of us will make a move at the same time. Whoever can make a move first will get it. Okay, we will do as Senior says. Hearing that, Duanmu Qing immediately chanted. It was actually the same as the Dao Sect's magic equipment. That dazzling golden object flew into the air and actually transformed into a long chain. At the front of this chain, there was even a chain-like protrusion. A kind of hard-to-resist restrictive force was born from this dragon subduing Locke's golden light. Kid, what magic equipment do you have? Why are you not taking it out? Old monster Zhifeng looked at Xiaohua curiously. Although Xiaohua looked like he was eager to fight, he did not take out the magic equipment that he expected. Xiaohua smiled and said, I do not need any magic equipment to subdue the Pegasus. Oh, old monster Zhifeng faintly raised his eyebrows. He did not show any astonishment. Chapter 3299. Fellow Immortals, I am about to make my move. Seeing that the Pegasus had already revealed its head and that the crystal only had a small layer around the Pegasus's stomach and tail, Duanmu Qing glanced at Xiaohua and old monster Zhifeng. She pointed with her finger, and that dragon-subduing lock released a golden light that soared into the sky and slowly flew towards the Pegasus. Nay, nay. The Pegasus's head was able to move, but its eyes had not yet opened. It immediately raised its head and let out a not-too-loud neigh. Following that, piu-piu sound came from its mouth and nose. The tail that had been sealed in the crystal rose into the air at the same time. Lock! Seeing that the Pegasus had moved, Duanmu Qing did not dare to be slow. She pointed with her finger, and that dragon-subduing lock turned into a ray of light and fell towards the Pegasus. The golden chain was aimed at the Pegasus's body, and the golden chain was aimed at the Pegasus's head that had just been raised. Roar! The Pegasus seemed to have sensed danger and opened its mouth again. At this time, the neigh was like that of an angry demonic beast. Following this neigh, the Pegasus finally opened its eyes. Hiss! Xiaohua saw the Pegasus's eyes and could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was because the Pegasus's eyes were not an ordinary dark brown. It did not even have any obvious pupils. Furthermore, they were bright balls of light. Together with two bright pearls, they were even more like two balls of bright moonlight. Just as Xiaohua was stunned, the four hooves of the Pegasus moved slightly. For clouds that seemed to glow with the same light appeared in midair. At the same time, the Pegasus emitted a faint white light around its body, blocking the power of the dragon-subduing lock. As the muscles on the Pegasus's four legs trembled like flowing water, the Pegasus's incomparably strong figure really was like a white horse passing through a crack in the air. A series of afterimages appeared in the air, easily escaping from Duanmu Qing's imperial equipment. Duanmu Qing saw that her attack that she was confident in had missed. Her face immediately revealed shame and anger, especially when she saw that the Pegasus was actually escaping towards Xiaohua's direction. She did not even have the time to be surprised. She only stared at Xiaohua. Good timing. Xiaohua did not expect that the opportunity would come so quickly. He shouted and activated the little amount of true origin in his meridians. His entire body was like a breeze as he floated towards the Pegasus. Old Demon Jifeng was extremely shocked in his heart when he saw Xiaohua actually execute the wind escape technique. His sharp mouth opened and closed as an ominous premonition arose spontaneously. Sure enough, the Pegasus was flying towards Xiaohua. Its momentum did not decrease, and Xiaohua met it with extreme speed. In the blink of an eye, Xiaohua was already in front of the Pegasus. He was facing the Pegasus' head. Hello! The Pegasus let out a furious roar and opened its mouth to bite towards Xiaohua's head. Its momentum was ferocious, and its movements were fast beyond everyone's expectations. It was about to bite off Xiaohua's head. At this dangerous moment, Xiaohua's figure suddenly swayed and suddenly turned strangely to the side. He was about to land on the back of the Pegasus. This was also part of Xiaohua's plan. As long as he was close to the Pegasus, he would immediately execute the ethereal steps. As long as his fists and feet touched the Pegasus, he would definitely not let the Pegasus escape from his hands. Nei Lulu. Just when Duanmu Qing's eyes were filled with jealousy and old demon Jifeng's eyes were filled with vexation, the Pegasus suddenly neighed. Layers of white light were emitted from the Pegasus's back. Within the white light, half of a pure white wing opened up. With a slight tremble, the Pegasus's figure immediately retreated like lightning. Xiaohua's hand had yet to touch the Pegasus's mane, but the Pegasus had already retreated by more than 10 feet. Damn it, I failed at the last step. I was just a few inches away. Xiaohua's magic power to activate the wind escape technique had already been exhausted. He could only stop. If he relied on the flying talisman, he would definitely not be able to catch up to the Pegasus. Xiaohua's gaze fell on the wings of the Pegasus. These wings were several zhang long. The entire wing wasn't made of feathers, but was completely condensed from a pure white brilliance. However, between the scales formed by this pure white brilliance, 50% of the space was filled with pure white feathers that were several inches long. What kind of Pegasus is this? Xiaohua looked at the Pegasus's wings and seemed to have thought of something. However, he could not touch anything. Ha ha, since all of you have failed, then watch this old man. Seeing that Xiaohua and Duanmu Qing had both failed, old demon Jifeng laughed loudly. Without waiting for old demon Jifeng's voice to land, there was a loud boom. A ball of faint yellow brilliance bloomed from where old demon Jifeng was standing. A spirit mouse that was several feet long swept up a hurricane and pounced towards the Pegasus. Wind escape technique. Seeing this, Xiao Hua could not help but groan. This is the true wind escape technique. Damn it, old demon Ji-Feng. That's right, the spirit mouse was like a fish in water in the wind. It was several times faster than Xiao Hua as it charged towards the Pegasus and landed on its back. Damn it, this old demon Ji-Feng is a wind mouse. Speed is his specialty. It is really easy for him to subdue the Pegasus. Not only was Xiao Hua wringing his hands, even Duan Muqing was sighing. Seeing that the spirit mouse was about to land on the Pegasus's back, she thought to herself, this Pegasus. It is too easy for him. But at this moment, something strange happened. The white light that had blocked Duan Muqing's dragon subduing lock appeared once again. It appeared around the Pegasus and blocked the tornado of the spirit mouse. It was like a sharp sword that prevented the spirit mouse from landing. Seeing that the white light had blocked the spirit mouse, the Pegasus flapped its wings and suddenly soared into the sky. It immediately threw the spirit mouse a few feet down. Squeak, squeak. The spirit mouse immediately let out an extremely horrifying squeak. When the squeak landed in Xiao Hua and Duan Muqing's ears, the blood in their bodies immediately boiled. Countless goosebumps appeared on the surface of their bodies. The white light around the Pegasus condensed and fell down like scales. This mouse's divine ability is incredible. Xiao Hua hurriedly activated the blood drop paradise and controlled the blood essence in his blood. Seeing Duan Muqing's face was blood red as she hurriedly flew towards the balcony, he could not help but praise. Following the spirit mouse's display of might, the white light around the Pegasus's body fell like snowflakes. The spirit mouse once again created a hurricane and appeared on the Pegasus's back. Pooh! Seeing that the spirit mouse was about to land, the Pegasus suddenly turned its head. The broken horn on the Pegasus's forehead shot out a white light that was as thick as a bowl at a speed faster than lightning. It accurately hit the spirit mouse's claws that were baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Squeak, squeak. With a loud scream, the earthy yellow light around the spirit rat was penetrated. Half of its claw was hit. Its entire body, which was several feet long, flipped in the air and fell far away. Roar! Old monster Ji-Feng's body was sent flying. Duan Muqing was also so frightened that she retreated back to the balcony. Only Xiao Hua was left in midair. The Pegasus did not even look at Xiao Hua, as if it was extremely disdainful. It raised its head and let out a long neigh. It flapped its wings and flew towards the sky like a beam of light. Where do you think you're going? Xiao Hua did not expect that someone as strong as old monster Ji-Feng would be sent flying by the Pegasus. He hurriedly activated his flying talisman and chased after the Pegasus. Unfortunately, his current speed was not as fast as the Pegasus. He was similar to a snail. With a loud roar, the Pegasus had already charged into the origin formation of the Bright Moon Palace. How could he still catch up? Rumble. At the top of the heavenly horse's head, layers of water-blue brilliance poured down like jade waves. 3 sneers came from 3 different directions of the jade waves. Evil creature, where do you think you are going? Soon after, 3 old men dressed in scholarly attire appeared from the jade waves. As the 3 of them chanted incantations, their true energy was agitated. Waves of awe-inspiring energy were born from the incantations, causing the jade waves to become like an inescapable net that enveloped the Pegasus. Go! Zhu Qing did not dare to be negligent. Unknowingly, she had already flown high into the sky. As she waved her hand, the 9 crystals from earlier flew towards 9 different directions of the jade waves. The brilliance of every crystal that came in contact with it gradually condensed. That inescapable net was like a huge crystal that was about to seal the Pegasus. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just as the crystals were about to form, a series of loud, rumbling sounds came from the Pegasus's body. Waves of brilliance that was even more holy than white light shot out from the 7 apertures of the Pegasus. It shot out from the Pegasus's horn and feathers and frantically swept towards the crystals. That holy brilliance was so powerful that once the crystals came in contact with it, they would all turn into nothingness. However, in the blink of an eye, that holy brilliance had already pierced through the crystals and illuminated the entire bright moon palace. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. The awe-inspiring energy of the 3 old men dressed in scholarly attire seemed to be inferior to this holy brilliance. They were actually counterattacked by their true energy. They couldn't help but spit out 3 mouthfuls of blood and withered in midair. Xiao Hua's face was also illuminated by this holy brilliance. However, the expression on his face was not like the regret on Zhu Qing's face, nor was it like the overjoyed expression on old monster Zhifeng's face, nor was it like the shocked expression on Duanmu Qing's face. His face actually carried a trace of enlightenment. It was as if a strand of distant memory was born in his mind. Seeing that the heavenly horse had already rushed several feet away from the bright moon palace and was about to escape with its wings of light, Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out Blackie from the space. He pointed his finger at the heavenly horse and instructed, "Can you subdue it?" Blackie suddenly appeared in midair. It was originally a little dazed. However, before it could open its eyes, its nose immediately twitched a few times. Then, it raised its head in pleasant surprise and looked directly at the heavenly horse that was spreading its wings and trying to escape. As far as its eyes could see, its scarlet little tongue stuck out from its mouth and circled around its lips. It looked like it was hungry for food, like a little dog that had seen a fragrant bone. At this moment, the heavenly horse had indeed begun to raise its wings of light. However, the broken horn on its head that was previously raised was abnormally dim. Even the white brilliance emitted from its body had become much thinner. Only a thin veil was left around the heavenly horse. It was obvious that it had expended a lot of energy to escape from the blue crystal just now. Moreover, in the night sky above Zhaixing Lu, because of the heavenly horse's white brilliance, it had already illuminated the surroundings several hundred feet. It was not the slightest bit inferior to the mystical display of the great scholar's authentic work. Chapter 3300. Of course, Xiao Hua's family wasn't the only one making a move. Just as Blackie flew out of the space, a suffocating dragon aura rushed out from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Although it wasn't as overwhelming as the dragon aura from the Dragon Bone, it was still extremely agile as it pounced on the Pegasus. Clearly, A.O. Shuai wanted to use this dragon aura to control the Pegasus. In addition, a faint stream of air that was much purer than the moonlight also flew out from Murong Songyun's pavilion. A faint scent of lilies instantly filled the entire place. Moreover, within that stream of air, traces of movement turned into tiny petals. The entire stream of air was like a rain of millions of flowers rushing towards the Pegasus. If Murong Songyun didn't have the means to subdue the Pegasus, then she was obviously shirking her responsibility. Her intention to withdraw from the bidding was even more thought-provoking. "Can you do it?" Xiaohao was a little anxious. After seeing the Pegasus' divine ability, he liked it even more and couldn't help but urge, "Father, what is subduing? Did you eat it?" Blackie still asked unhurriedly. His blinking eyes clearly had a fawning look. A trace of pitiful light appeared in his pitch-black eyes, as if the Pegasus was his delicacy. He was hungry and wanted to eat it. Xiao Hua angrily scolded, "Father doesn't have a horse to ride. This thing has to carry father on its back." "Oh, boy knows. Just like Huan Huan." Blackie immediately understood and cheerfully said, "Father, wait for me." Immediately, a pitch-black lightning streaked across the sky and quickly rushed into the sky. On the 3rd floor, the other VIPs who didn't participate in the bidding naturally didn't look at Xiao Hua. The dragon aura from the Dragon Palace and Murong Tsungyan's lilies were enough to attract their attention. However, old monster Ji Feng was different. Although he was still injured by the Pegasus in his original form, he was wearing a shirt and had transformed into a humanoid form. However, he didn't look at the dragon aura or the lilies. His attention was always on Xiaohua. When Xiaohua released Blackie, old monster Ji Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. This was because Blackie didn't make him feel any vigilance. Moreover, the secret technique that followed made him unable to see through Blackie's depth. However, when he saw Little Black turn into a bolt of black lightning and overtake it, surpassing the dragon power and the lily airflow, the shock in his eyes could not be suppressed. Dragon aura. Even the Confucian scholars of the hidden immortal continent would tremble in fear when facing it, let alone the demons and demonic beasts of the Thousand Demon Sacred Realm. It was an innate fear of high-level demons. Although old demon Ji Feng had some success in his cultivation and could use a mystic technique to resist the dragon's might, there was a limit to it. He was not afraid of a patrol envoy like Ao Shuai, but against the superior dragon general, old monster Ji Feng had no confidence at all. As for this Little Black, it seemed to be of a very low level in his secret technique. It actually treated the dragon's might as if it was nothing. Old monster Ji Feng really didn't know what this meant. Perhaps that demonic aura from before came from this black dog? This was old monster Ji Feng's final guess. Of course, following this guess, old monster Ji Feng's bright eyes made a decision. Ao Shuai's dragon's might. Murong Tsiun's lily airflow easily formed a new triangle with the black lightning that Little Black turned into, wanting to clamp the Pegasus in the middle. At this time, the Pegasus had already spread out its wings of light. Although it looked dispirited, facing the dragon's might and the lily airflow, the Pegasus' moonlight-like eyes did not have any reaction at all. However, its figure that streaked across the night sky slightly dodged these two attacks that were close to it, not putting them in its eyes. However, just as the Pegasus was about to break the jade cage and fly the rainbow phoenix, break the golden lock and move the flood dragon, its figure that had already turned into a light shadow suddenly trembled. Because in front of the Pegasus, about 10 zhang away, in the night sky that was illuminated by the Pegasus' brilliance, a black dog that seemed to have appeared out of thin air blocked the Pegasus that had already accelerated. Similar to the previous boiling crystal ripples, the light around the Pegasus' body rapidly trembled, like a flickering candle in the night wind. This was a situation that had never happened since the Pegasus appeared. Oh, in the Bright Moon Palace, without exception, everyone was shocked from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone could see that this was the Pegasus' expression of fear. Roar. Suddenly, on the Pegasus' single horn that had already dimmed, a light pillar that was as thick as a bowl appeared and shot towards the black dog. Although this light pillar was not as bright as the one that injured old monster Ji Feng previously, its speed was much faster by a few notches. As for the Pegasus, at the same time that the light pillar shot out, its body flashed and actually rushed towards the lily airflow as fast as lightning. That light pillar that was as thick as a bowl instantly rushed in front of the black dog, as if it could instantly pierce through the black dog. However, just as everyone was slightly worried, the most shocking thing happened. That seemingly obedient black dog barked softly and immediately opened its mouth. A silver light shot out from the black dog's mouth and covered the light pillar. Everyone watched as the light pillar that was the size of a bowl actually entered the black dog's mouth. Furthermore, after the light pillar was swallowed by the black dog even let out a small burp. Whoosh! The black dog that seemed to have not eaten its fill moved again. Once again, it turned into a streak of black lightning and shot up several tens of feet into the sky. There, although the Pegasus waved its wings of light with some difficulty, it still managed to dodge the lily airflow's attack. As for the dragon's aura of the Dragon Palace, It seemed to only stir up the light around the Pegasus body and was unable to subdue the Pegasus. Harumph! Seeing that Blackie was flying over again, the Pegasus' four hooves impatiently kicked a few times in the air. Its snow-white tail rapidly swayed behind it, but as it raised its head and neighed unyieldingly at the night sky. Although the Pegasus' expression could not be seen from its eyes, there was an obvious sadness in its neighing. The raised wings of light trembled once again and seemed to have suddenly grown several tens of feet. The entire Pegasus rushed towards Blackie like a ray of light. It actually seemed to have the intention of a life and death struggle. Blackie and the Pegasus were both extremely fast. In just a breath's time, they had already collided. However, at the moment of collision, Blackie once again spat out a silver brilliance from his mouth and landed on the broken horn on the Pegasus's forehead. The Pegasus, which was originally as fast as lightning, suddenly became limp and fell from the sky. As for Black, he landed lightly on the Pegasus's forehead. It turned its head to show off and barked at Xiao Hua with a woof-woof. Xiao Hua faintly smiled. His figure flew up and flew towards where the Pegasus had fallen. At this moment, old monster Ji Feng, who was watching from afar, suddenly flew over. What? Old monster Ji Feng, this Pegasus was subdued by me. Are you going to stop me? Xiao Hua's smiling expression disappeared as he indifferently looked at old monster Ji Feng, who was flying over, and asked. With a smile on his face, old monster Ji Feng hastily said, "Fellow immortal Xiao misunderstood. This Pegasus was subdued by fellow immortal Xiao in front of everyone. How could this old man dare to go back on his words? However, this old man has a matter to discuss with fellow immortal Xiao. I ask fellow immortal Xiao to wait in the room after bidding for this Pegasus. This old man will personally pay a visit. Be careful, be careful." And Xiao Hua saw that old monster Ji Feng wasn't stopping him and was instead stopping in midair. He faintly nodded his head. Without stopping, his figure flew several tens of feet. That previously incomparably arrogant Pegasus was like a pile of mud as it fell from midair with a loud bang. Although the Pegasus' fall was very fierce, Xiao Hua extended his hand and easily caught it, as if it didn't have any weight at all. Then, Xiao He jumped down from the Pegasus' forehead and ran a few rounds around Xiao Hua, as if he was having fun. Then, Xiao Hua kept the Pegasus into his space. Seeing that Xiao Hua kept the Pegasus, everyone became quiet. Ao Shuai's dragon might disappeared, and Murong Tsungyan's lily rain was also kept. Duan Muqing stood at the balcony and coldly looked at Xiao Hua for a long time. Like old monster Ji Feng, although she was somewhat unwilling, there was nothing she could do. She turned around and entered the room. Only Zhu Qing flew over with a smile. She greeted Xiao Hua, who was descending from midair, and cupped her hands. "Congratulations, fellow immortal Xiao." Xiao Hua laughed and said, "What are you congratulating for? Aren't you just here to ask for vitality stones? Take it." As he spoke, Xiao Hua extended his hand and took out a small Qingquan bag from his bosom and handed it over to Zhu Qing. Zhu Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She hurriedly waved her hand. "Fellow immortal Xiao, I am only here to congratulate you. You only need to hand over these vitality stones to Xiao Yi. Forget it. It's the same no matter who I give it to." Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the small Qingquan bag landed in Zhu Qing's hand. Zhu Qing had no choice but to accept it. She looked at it and said in a low voice, "Fellow immortal, I have already seen the things in this small Qingquan bag. However, I still need my subordinates to estimate the exact amount. Therefore, fellow immortal Xiao is still not done with my Zhai Xing Lu. All right, then this Xiao will wait in the room." Xiao Hua nodded. Then, he looked around and sighed. "Your Bright Moon Palace's third floor was originally meant to hide our true faces. Now, I'm afraid that everyone will know that it was me who bid for this Pegasus." "Fellow immortal, don't worry," Zhu Qing hurriedly said. "Just now I saw clearly that fellow immortal did not fly up into the sky. Furthermore, the vitality formation on the third floor and the auction hall still exists. Others might not know about it. Of course, this Pegasus is too conspicuous. No matter where fellow immortal rides it, as long as it wants to fly, it will definitely be discovered by others. It is no different from revealing your true face today. All right. Xiao Hua looked at the quiet third floor. He cupped his hands and said, "Thanks to young Master Zhu, I was able to find such an excellent mount. I am truly grateful." "No need to thank me. No need to thank me." Zhu Qing waved her hand. "To be able to help fellow immortal Xiao, I am also happy. This means that my Zhai Xing Lu is still useful to fellow immortal Xiao." Xiao Huan naturally understood the meaning behind Zhu Qing's words. He only smiled and nodded slightly. Then, he activated his flying talisman and returned to his room. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.